It's a different gun, but it's the same gun.
It's the same gun. Different tank, same gun, different tank. Different tank. Same gun, same tank, different gun.
Same tank, different gun, tank
gun. He's like, sir, he's like smacking on the back, like steam coming out.
Mate, shareholders already made a profit, okay?
Don't worry. We've already sold out of pre-orders.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
he's like
Jesus,
the red dot's like lining up to his forehead. He's like,
I said too much.
It's like in like filmography, it's like if you want to create like a danger, if you want to make somebody seem imposing and dangerous, you do bottom up. And if you want someone to seem like more meek or like relatable, it's top down. People can relate better to things they're looking down on, which is very strange.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome back to the Relatable Podcast.
Welcome back.
Relatable? What?
No, but seriously, welcome back to From the Vault. I am Dylan. I am joined by Trent.
Hello. Welcome back, me.
And behind the scenes is Connor.
Happy belated New Year, everybody.
Happy belated New Year.
Happy belated New Year.
It's 2024.
2024. We're back. We're back for 2024. Everyone have a good Christmas?
Oh, yeah, dude. Kidding me? Best.
It's good. Had my bubba's first Christmas.
Whoa. Very exciting.
She's not going to remember anything. She's not even one. So I don't understand why people are like, oh, it's their first Christmas. They're going to love it. It's like, bro, she's barely understanding how to suck on her own fist yet. Like it's, yeah. Anyway, speaking of sucking on fists today, we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Open.
Correct. The big 40K event.
Big 40K event.
Well, the biggest is known as like 40K event, but there are other lots of events that go on that are all Warhammer related.
Yeah. And there was some awesome reveals.
Big reveals.
From Games Workshop.
Which is what we're going to get into first and foremost. Most about that. And then we'll bring up and talk about the winning list of LVO as well, which was actually super funny. I'm very excited.
That's good. I was going to watch Tactical Tortoise's video today, but I ran out of time.
Yes, it's very cool.
All right, well, let's start. Where did the previews start, Connor?
It looks like we're starting with Kill Team today.
Oh, is this the Drukhari?
The Mandrakes versus the Night Lords.
So we had the Night Lords announced a while ago. So we knew about the Night Lords coming. But the Mandrakes being announced was the brand new thing for LVO. So this is a thing that's interesting. I've heard this rhetoric a bit, and I'm going to spit it myself. I think it's kind of true. Kill Team, the new season, has been a bit of a weird one. For a long time, we got a lot of very bespoke warbands for Kill Team that felt very much like they were being put into Kill Team, right? They were very much like, look at the Kroot Farstalker Kin band and the Felgor Beastmen. And these are even fundamentally quite modern kits, quite modern teams. These feel like they're teams designed for and about Kill Team. And this new season, look at like the Striking Scorpions, the Scout Marines, and now the Mandrakes. It feels like it's a kit actually for 40k. It feels like it's a kit not for Kill Team, but it feels like a kit for 40k that's boxed in a Kill Team box.
This is interesting. You remember the era where they did, well, I say era, but it was only like 2 years ago, for about, I think it was like 4 years, where they would release dual army sets. You know, you would have like Thousand Suns versus Space Wolves, I think it was.
Oh yeah, like they did that all the time. Like there was one for Chaos Space Marines versus Eldar not long ago.
Yeah.
Shield of Bale, Blood Angels versus Tyranids.
Exactly. So these well, there was a string where they like every 3 months there was a new like double army box set, and it wasn't a starter kit. It was like a one and done print run. My working theory behind that, well, my working hypothesis is not a theory because it hasn't been proven. But my working hypothesis for those at home,
that's just a theory.
Tinfoil hat. My working hypothesis on it was that is how Games Workshop got the cost of R&D and design off of the cost of goods for printing the product. So basically, when you sell a product, there is a cost of goods to it, and then if you have like further development stuffs like designing new models, testing out rules for those models and updated designs, assembly practices, drafts of assembly instructions, all that kind of stuff, right? This all costs money. This costs hours of time for people to do and put those together.
Of course.
And then you have the life of the product that you can then like, I guess, amortize the cost of all that development across. But that makes it really messy for accounting, right? You don't know when the end of the life of this product is going to be. So do you just say, oh, well, let's say that we're going to have the cost of this design and development stretched out over 4 years. Or we're going to have it stretched out over 2 years. But what I think that's happening is these army box sets, and now to a degree, I think the Kill Team box sets now with these new kits that are fantastically designed, and questionable whether they're designed for Kill Team itself, but fantastically designed models that these Kill Team boxes are a continuation of that process. So you design and develop the assembly instructions, the kits, all that kind of stuff, right? And then you throw them into a single box set.
You're saying it's like an open beta.
Well, not an open beta. It's a cost reduction. It's a way to get the costs off the books for the business transactions, right?
Okay.
So this box, maybe it breaks even, right? You take all the costs of development and then you say, this is a one and done print run. So we know exactly how many copies there are. We know exactly how many copies we're printing over this time period, and we're going to put those costs across that. And at the end of the day, we're going to print enough so that if we sell them all, even at distributor prices, if we sell them all, we're going to make our money back. And these boxes are going to break even. And then when these boxes then go to individual kits that people can purchase, the only cost of goods on there is now the hard material cost and not the design and development pre-costs.
Well, I don't feel like that's a hypothesis. That feels obvious. I think also at the same time, it's like classic EW. It's also like, if you want to get the Mandrakes now, you got to buy the Night Lords.
Yes.
Like, it just sells more product. Like, it's just easy. And also...
And it covers the design costs.
And it's also like... It'd be like, if look at Commander series in Magic the Gathering, it's like pretty obvious, right? It's like, if you had to buy both decks, we wouldn't have a billion jillion Boros Rebel decks if you had to buy both.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like you have to buy both. So if you want to buy this box set, you got to sell the others on the secondary market if you don't want them. You got to find somebody to split with. But Games Workshop still makes their money because they bought both.
Yeah.
And that's what I think comes down to. At the same time as well, even when these boxes come out, which is not to knock down what you're saying, but like, even when these boxes come out by themselves, they'll still say Kill Team on them. They'll still be Kill Team boxes.
Oh yeah, they'll still be Kill Team boxes.
I don't think it'll be like, oh, here's the Mandrakes for 40k. It'll be, no, here's the Mandrake Kill Team. But in reality,
the same as the Kroot Farstalkers. They're still
no, right?
Do they ever come in as an individual box?
They might have.
Yeah.
But they're no. See, this is important, right? So the Farstalker Kin Band is a kill team. Mm-hmm. It has 2 Kroot Hounds. It has a guy with a missile launcher, a guy with a sniper rifle, a leader model, 2 guys with shotguns, and 2 guys with Kroot bow, like weapons. And there's a guy with like a big like a big bow. Like, each model is designed to work by itself. It's designed to work in the game of kill team.
It's like a Warhammer Underworlds.
It's a Warhammer Underworlds or like a Warcry Warband. It's like each guy has his own role to fill, and then there's a couple of like kind of recruits. There's like a Stargrave reference. Like there's a couple like random little chaff guys. But look at the Mandrakes, right? Let's bring out the Mandrakes here. And this is also somewhat true about the Night Lords. We're on the Night Lords currently. But this is also true about the Night Lords. But these guys are like, they're all guys with a sword.
Yeah, they're all Mandrakes.
They're all Mandrakes. And there's one guy with like the big sweeping, I think he's got the big sweeping coat. And they have like little details here and there. But as you could see, they all have like some variant of melee weapon, which will be like Mandrake melee weapon will be their profile in 40k.
Yeah.
Because what they are is we've updated the Mandrake kit for you. And that's a great thing. By the way, that's a great thing. I'm so excited for the new Mandrakes. They look brilliant. But I just want to say that this season has been very interesting, and I expect this to keep going, where we'll get new, more and more models that are just, we're updating these kits for the old game and putting them into a kill team. Striking Scorpions are the same. Like the Striking Scorpions kit from this series, like the ones I think right before these ones.
Yeah.
And the Scout Marines, those are just a Scout Marine squad and a Striking Scorpion squad because we've just updated those kits. I feel like these Night Lords are the closest we've gotten so far to a real kill team. But like, look at the very last set we got in Into the Dark, right? Mm-hmm. Where we got, or Harrow Dark, whatever it was called, where we got Gallo Dark, thank you. Where we got the Velgor Beastmen and the Votan. And the Votan had like a unique weapon on Hearthstone Warriors that they had to actually put into the index. They had, for 10th edition, they also had like a jump pack guy.
Yep.
And that's like not even a model that the Votan have. So this is all like really new material. Same thing with the Kroot, same thing with the Felgor, same thing with all these old like kill teams. Whereas these bespoke kill teams almost feel like if I could play Mandrakes in, which I don't even know if you can because I haven't gone this deep, but if you could play them in the compendium, that's like, we just update the skulls from the compendium. But of course, for Kill Team, they'll have, like, I'm not saying they won't have their own rules. Obviously, they'll have their own rules with their own tac ops, spec ops, and of course, equipment. They'll have their own stuff they can do. They're probably really fun to play. But I just want to say that that's what these feel like to me.
Look, honestly,
it's a good excuse. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, it is a good excuse to update these kits, though. It is a really good excuse for it.
I mean, even the Night Lords look great, but they're giving me, like, the look of it's a Chaos Space Marines box, like a Chaos Legionnaires box. With an upgrade sprue.
I would be surprised if that's the case. I think these guys might be, they're a little bit more like jagged and angular, I think, but it could also be the paint job. But again, these guys, another thing for me is that you've got like the leader unit. It feels like a chosen squad. You've got the leader unit, the weapons guy, the heavy weapons guy, and the I don't want to call it a banner. They've got a better word for it, but like essentially the banner, which gives them the dark chaos stuff. Like for me, again, this feels like a bit more bespoke, but still.
That looks more like a master of execution than like an actual guy.
Exactly. But you know, that's good. I also like, if you go back one there, Connor, I like the guy at the top right there. I like both those two actual Marines. Those are very unique models. I mean, love them both.
The top right one does essentially look like a Chaos Space Marine with a head switch.
Yeah, but
it still looks great.
Regardless, I feel like at least they feel like they have like a more unique gameplay. I think I think the Night Lords are going to be the standout kit from these pair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of reminds me of a lieutenant, like a Space Marine, like the
Primaris lieutenant.
Yeah,
it does look like a Primaris lieutenant.
Reaver armor, I think, with the knife.
Yeah,
very
same kind of
vibe, but obviously with the hood, it just
these actually would be really honestly, because these still all look really unique as well, which is a great factor of this. But because they all look really unique, I think these would be fantastic as your like aspiring champions of an entire like Night Lord's army.
That's great. That's such a good idea. Yeah, definitely. That way you can have like, you just buy a bunch of Legionnaire boxes. You're not buying, because I think as well with the kill teams, and this is definitely why the Mandrakes I think will fit better. Is, and a bit ironically, but I'll get to it, is that, if you buy like 3 boxes of these Night Lords kill teams, you can have 3 squads that look very, very samey.
Yeah.
And they'll probably have they'll have weapon options, right? So you'll be able to build them differently, but however, they'll mostly look quite samey. Whereas the Mandrakes, if you buy boxes and boxes and boxes of Mandrakes, I feel like they already look so samey that they'll just kind of blend together better.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking like 3 unique units. 3 identical yet unique units. I think you're right. Yeah, having those like sparring champions throughout your Night Lords army is a really cool idea. But the sculpts are incredible too.
Yeah, the Chaos Legionnaires kits, by the way, if anyone hasn't seen them yet, they're fantastic sculpts as well. When they did the update in the Shadowbane, I think it was the box that they updated all of the Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah.
The latest kits of Chaos Space Marines are phenomenal. So,
absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, they're just great. They're just great. And I think they're like all these newer kits, obviously, Warhammer just like knocking it out of the park. You'll see more as we go through LVO today. But these kits are all knocking out of the park. Even the terrain pieces we can see there is also really quite cool.
Yeah.
But just love them. Love them. And again, if you've seen Mandrakes currently, they're Citadel Failcast Resin. They're old. They're hot, just terrible. So it is quite exciting. And I think Kill Team is a game that does very well for itself. I think it's a cool rule set, and I'm glad that it keeps getting more and more support. I was kind of dubious when we kind of went away from the kind of Space Hulk idea and we kind of going back to those open fighting.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that we're all still on those kind of like it's like an oil rig kind of design where there's a lot of like pitfalls and such, which I'm really excited by. Makes the game really really, what's the word, like dynamic, the gameplay. And I like any kind of skirmish game that cares about its terrain and its board a lot.
I do think moving away from the Gallo Dark era and going away from the tight quarters combat of inside Space Hulks, I feel like it kind of that gave Kill Team a fantastic, I guess, identity to gameplay.
Yeah, definitely.
That may be lost as we start moving back into open play, or like open battlegrounds.
See, I love the Kill Team design language because it's very reminiscent of like Necromunda with like the industrial walkways and inside manufactorums and that kind of thing. So it's kind of taken that like small scale nuts and bolts like heavy terrain set tables and made that a part of its identity with these really cool modern kits and a modern rule set.
I think you roll 1/3 of the dice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is one of the things that's really bringing me towards like trying Kill Team in 2024.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think it's absolutely correct. I think that the Gallo Dark like terrain and the design of it was a bit too concise. And I think that's probably why we're moving away from it now, because like we can't stay there forever. Because while it did give its own identity, I think it was like boards were hard to set up as someone who's interacted with that terrain a lot. Boards are very long to set up, very hard to set up. Missions were very, very cut and paste. Like they had to be, that's not the right word, sorry. They were very like regimented. Like you kind of had to go, this is specifically what mission I'm playing. And that only works with this very specific terrain loadout. And it is nice to be able to go, here's my dense terrain I have from either Necromunda or I've just bought a bunch of these boxes. I slam them together. I know a friend who has like 3 sets of the Orc terrain from the original Octarius when the new Kill Team first dropped, and putting that all together as like a gigantic Orc fortress works really, really well.
So good.
Using some of the not galleys, like the term for bridges, using a bunch of the bridges from other kits, even like Warcry kits and such, to really bring them all
like
together.
Walkways and catwalks.
Walkways and catwalks, and there's a word for that.
Gantries.
Gantries. That's it.
There we go. I was like, oh my god, my brain just stopped as well.
I was like, my Age of Empire 2 brain. I'm like, galleys. But yeah. I'm also noticing that Lumineth, I think, has like a typo on the actual like title here.
It's Luminth.
Luminth. Honestly,
but-
more interesting.
I was going to say, good segue, just having noticed that. Let's talk about another skirmish game, one very near and dear to our hearts.
Warcry. So
Warcry.
what do they preview for Warcry, Connor?
Oh, so we've got a new box coming out, and it's featuring Nighthaunt and Lumineth.
Luminth.
Luminth.
And this is the same thing as like you mentioned with the Kill Team box, where it's like, you know, we bring it out as a big box set, comes with a piece of terrain in there, and then that helps us offload the costs as well. And also, again, it helps, you know, have a better overhead because all of a sudden it's like people have to buy both.
Yeah. And it's every time there's a reveal season now, I'm just waiting for the Warcry drop. And I think this new Nighthaunt faction will actually get me to play Death as a Grand Alliance because I'm very much like not into that aesthetic very much.
Not normally. I'm a huge Nighthaunt player. Love the Nighthaunt. Always have since I first started touching Age of Sigmar. And these Nighthaunt are absolutely like brilliant. They're just so brilliant. The Lumineth are really cool as well. I think that there's like a cool kind of ninja aesthetic they're going for Lumineth, which is very unique. The Lumineth don't usually go towards the ninja aesthetic.
I'll get to the Lumineth in a bit.
Also, I feel like Green Fire was kind of the design, the thing at the center of the brainstorm bubble was just green flames. Mandrakes. Nighthaunt.
Yeah.
Fire.
Green fire.
Don't use the word fell.
Yeah. It's not fell.
Blizzard will attack us if we use the word fell.
So, unless it's in fell gore.
It's our word for dark.
I want to mention as well that Death doesn't have many bespoke warbands at all in Warcry. Not very many.
Very underrepresented.
Super unrepresented. And Nighthaunt have never had one. Nighthaunt never had a bespoke warband for this game. They do have what's called a Battleborn warband where you can use the Thorns of the Briar Queen from Warhammer Underworlds.
Bladeborn.
The Bladeborn, sorry. What do I call them?
Battleborn.
The Bladeborn, which lets you use the models on Warhammer Underworlds, but they don't have their own bespoke warbands. This is the first time they've really released their own models, which is so cool. And in an army of
so dynamic.
In an army of like kind of derivative ghosts that are designed to be like a crowd of the like emptiness, like, you know, you're meant to have like 60 chain wraps that you can't tell the difference between them because they're meant to be just like a horde of random undead. These feel really unique and very cool, even though they share a lot of the same design elements. You know, they've got those long flowing coats. They've all got like a kind of a weapon depending on their type. The characters have always been super, super exciting in Nighthaunt, and you can see it right here on this guy here. However, I think another thing to add about this warband, which you'll be able to do yourself at home if you pick it up, but I think the paint job for these guys, which is often the opposite of this time I think is doing a lot of work for them. I think they could have painted the other three bone white Nighthaunt, the kind of
Harridan kind of looking.
Yeah, there's those two there with the armor, those two there with the fire, and then there's these three guys next, exactly, and they have like those white coats. They could have painted those with the same black as the rest of the army, and it probably would have looked
just
10 times worse. Well, actually, no.
I think it would look just as good.
No, like quality wise, yeah, but I think it would have looked 10 times worse because they would have looked so samey.
Oh,
I think they would have come across as another Nighthaunt warband where all the models look the same. But the artist has gone, no, let me cook.
Yeah.
He's given them these bone white coats, which make these models look so different to the rest in the line, which I think is perfect for them. The actual quality of the sculpt, there's no question about it. Nighthaunt has always knocked out the park. Their models are always brilliant. But yeah, I think it's really awesome to see the artists really take their own here and really make a decision that's really benefits them.
Express themselves.
Definitely one of the greatest like designed factions to come to Age of Sigmar.
Definitely.
Because there really wasn't anything. It was like the Black Coach, and that was it. In the Death Age of Sigmar stuff. In the Death Warhammer Fantasy stuff.
Oh well, no, I think the Black Coach is also Nighthaunt because it's like I think it's like what are they called?
Corpse Cart?
No, the Corpse Cart. Yes, that's from Old Fantasy.
It was Legions of Nagash.
Legions of Nagash. Well, the Legions of Nagash had the Malignants, right?
Yeah.
And the new model for them was the Malignants was the Black Coach.
Yeah,
so that was released, I think, in Age of Sigmar. That was their new model, and it was like the transition was what are they called? It's like a 5 squad of horses, and they have like scythes.
The Hex Wraiths.
Hex Wraiths.
Yeah.
The Hex Wraiths of the Nighthaunt unit that were translated from there, and they have the old horses. You can instantly tell the look of their horses because the Black Coach has the horses from like the Dreadblade Harrows and such. They've got the newly designed Age of Sigmar horses, which look great. The Black Coach is an insane model, isn't it?
Yes,
it's got to be one of the best models in Age of Sigmar for sure.
Yeah, and just the freedom they've gone with Nighthaunt to go, let's do spooky ghosts and let's like lean into it so much harder than when they had that era of vampire counts and Tomb Kings.
And Tomb Kings.
Tomb Kings. In Warhammer Fantasy, like just shifting to this new aesthetic is what I love about Age of Sigmar. It's allowed Warhammer's design team, like model design team, to experiment with different elements of the fantasy. That they just were locked into after like 30 years of Warhammer Fantasy.
Just as a quick aside here, you know what faction I would like to see come back in a bespoke warband, which I think would be kind of cool and give Death something a little bit more flavor? Vampire Coast. Just give me some just give me some nautical themed pirate vampires and ghouls, you know?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see an actual bespoke Ossiarch Bone Reapers faction.
That would be cool.
For Warcry. I think that you could do some really, really amazing stuff with them that I've just like, I think Ossiarch Bone Reapers for me hit the other side of that equation where I think like that is an army where they could have done so much, but they kind of got their first release wave and they've just had 2 characters like drip fed since then.
You do like a bespoke Bone Shaper and then have him shaping the bones into different bespoke characters.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like a freaking like bone dog or like a big bone turtle looking thing with like 8 legs or something, like a big bone spider or something. Like all these different weird looking creatures that are all like his retinue that he's created.
Yeah.
And he's just tried to like almost like a Frankenstein's monster style thing where he's got kind of like the Frankenstein character and he's trying to put these bones together into different things. I think that's where Ossiarch Bone could go really cool directions.
You can make Marek Zoo Artisan. There you go.
Yeah. Zoo Artisan.
It's just, it would be nice to see, you know, more to the Ossiarchs than just, here's a Bone Romans Legion Mortex shield wall. Yeah. And then maybe, you know,
and then
one of the big dudes with the things, not the Morghols, the
Morghast,
Morghast, you know, like give us something in between, like give us some like beefy bone golems dudes. Or like,
I was gonna say they do have like the Necropolis Stalker and the Immortus Guard, which are like they're the in between of the Morghast and the thing. But even then, like just some more unique characters, right? Just like more unique looking characters that are going into that. I think there's like a bone shaping magic that we actually don't see very much because it's very regimented. And it does have that kind of Roman centurion kind of design, which is great. I think that works really well for them. But look at like the they got weird names, but there's like a unit for the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. It's like a very large crocodile-headed like
Gothazar Harvester.
The Gothazar Harvester. Look at the Gothazar Harvester design. Like it's either the big crocodile head or it's like the big turtle head or like hawk head. I think it's turtle head, and it's like huge, big bald arms. Like
just picks up bones,
and it's got like a little guy in his hip that's like built into it. That's like picking up bones. It's full of bones itself. It's just an absolutely phenomenal model. And if you look at the... You're
going to have to search for it again because that shitty website.
Great website.
Warhammer.
Thanks, Warhammer. But yeah, the Gothazar Harvester. This is the kind of bone mech design that I think is perfect for the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, but it's not translated to their rank and file. It's not translated to smaller size models.
This kind of makes me think a little bit Crix in War Machine.
It's very Crix, isn't it?
It's very sort of like in that realm. So maybe if they did a little bit more with that with a bespoke warband, and they'd be like, here's our bone automaton, like, you know, armor-plated bone golems.
It's like they haven't really lent into we can make weird bones. Like that and the catapult are like the only real major things that they've made. And then everything else kind of looks like things that already exist.
They're like dudes made of bone. Yeah. And that's like okay. And that's cool. But yeah, I'd like more things made of bone.
Bone gorgons.
Made of bone. Yeah, bone gorgons, that kind of stuff.
Really commit to them being the new Tomb Kings, right? Give me a fucking Necropolis Stalker made of bone.
Also like, again, imagine if you will, like an 8-legged like disc with 8 like bones, but they're like hands at the end. They're like bone arms holding it up. And then it's got a little crossbow on the back, a little bone crossbow. Like 3 of them running around. Like just straight up,
that's
just
like 2 Mortex like on top loading it.
Yeah, exactly. You've got 2, or even the 2 Mortex are their own models, and they have like a double crew, which can like do an extra bonus attack. You know what I mean? Like very often you'll see like in the Seraphon, for example, they have the team of skinks that like jab and prod at like this animalistic creature, and their double, which is one of the abilities in Warcry, is that they can give that creature a bonus shooting attack. These little like guys could give those little bonus shooting attacks.
That'd
like
cool. Skink handlers.
Skink handlers, yeah. And they and the salamander is the creature I'm thinking of, and there's also like the Razordon. Yeah. But both of them is like, so give them that kind of stuff. That'd be so cool.
That'd be really cool.
Now, we've talked about the Nighthaunt. We've talked about what we want from it. Let's not get over these Lumineth. So, okay, Lumineth. Let's talk about Lumineth. I want to talk about something first, okay? I am worried about a Warcry warband that probably has 8 wounds and toughness 3. I'm worried about a Warcry warband that probably is quite fast. I'm thinking 6-inch move. Probably 3 wounds. Probably 8 wounds. Probably toughness 3. Maybe even some of them have 6 wounds. Look at these little guys.
Yeah.
I think it's also a perspective as well thing. Like these guys look really small. They look. I was saying this when I first saw these on the announcements. Do they not have the proportions of like children?
No, they look like they're on 20 mil bases.
Well, they're definitely on like. Well, they're on. Surely they're not on 20.
They
mils.
feel
They're
like
maximum
hobbits.
25. That's what. But look at them. They're actual big heads, little arms, little legs. They look genuinely like they've put 12-year-olds on the front lines, which is very weird. I think it's a perspective thing.
Yeah,
like look at that guy at the top right there. Look how small he looks.
because they're all jumping forward.
They're all jumping forward. I think it's the cameraman needs to. They need a new guy.
Just tilt the model,
turn them a little bit, show
Rotate
it
the
off better.
model.
However, I'm almost in the space where I'm like, if they are actually just little people, if they are actually just like small hobbit-sized Lumineth, I'm kind of vibing that.
Yeah.
I kind of might even play these guys.
4 feet of fury.
4 feet of fury. That's kind of cool. Like, can you imagine like tiny Lumineth ninja? Okay. By the way, the Lumineth, there's a very like kind of feudal kind of Asian aesthetic that goes with the Lumineth very heavily. It was only a matter of time they got ninja, and I don't know if you could do Lumineth better than this as ninja. However, maybe this was a good opportunity to bring in like an Umbraneth ninja squad, maybe like show off some new stuff. But how do you feel?
I do have a problem that they look so much like Harlequins.
What?
I'm going to go another route, actually. I think they kind of remind me of another Warcry warband that already exists.
Oh, the
Cypher Lords.
They do look like the Cypher Lords.
Well, the Cypher Lords are from Hish.
Yeah.
So
maybe it's just
Isn't
a
that
cultural
interesting?
thing.
They must. Surely it is a cultural thing. But no, I also you know what? I'm also seeing the Harlequins kind of design. I think, however, do you think it's like visually they're very Harlequin, or do you think that's also just in their like motion of design, like the actual design?
I think it's
like,
both.
Yeah.
Like visually with the like Centurion, like tops on top of the helmet. It's look at that. It's
they do have very
the
Harlequin
masks.
vibes, and the masks,
the porcelain
I can
masks,
see it.
very Harlequin-y.
But Harlequins are also kind of like Ninja Elder. They're kind of Ninja Elder, aren't they?
They're all ninja elves.
They're all ninja elves. That's what I'm saying, right? They're very ninja.
I can see how there's a little bit of like an eyes wide shut thing going on with the masks. Like the secret, the password is Fidelio.
Yeah, I see it.
It's just getting a bit like, ooh, But like, I do like these Lumineth models, but it's just, I don't know, Lumineth as an army doesn't really interest me that much because the design language, I was having a conversation about this last week at Warcry. The design language of Lumineth is very like, I don't know, because it's just so white and blue, it's very like flat.
I feel like it's undecided.
Well, to be fair, I think I don't remember their names, so help us out in the comments if you know their names, but that's only the primary faction of the Lumineth, right? And what I love about the Lumineth, and this is a bit, again, maybe hypocritical, because this is what I don't like about the Votann, but I do like this about the Lumineth, where it's like they have these 3 different avenues, however. They have the Vanari, the Sinari, and the Huracan. And the Vanari are like the stone masons, like the earth, the mountains, the rock.
The cow guys.
The cow guys. The that's the Vanari. The Sinari are like the high elves. They're like the ethereals of the Tau, essentially, where it's like we're kind of like the people in charge. We're all about democracy, and we're all about like paperwork. That's kind of what we're about. We're all about like building cities, and we're all about like flowing coats. We're very much about like we're the most artificial kind of faction. And then you have the Huracan, which is like where would the mountains be without the wind? And then the Huracan is like, well, we are the flow of time, the flow of space, the wind, the change. That's what the Huracan are. And there are these 3 very different design elements between all 3. And I think that these guys remind me a lot of the Sinari, where they're very much like the high elf design, when it's possible they could have gone for the more Huracan design, because, what's more silent than the wind, right? You know what I mean? Like as silent as the wind. Like that's a thing that I can kind of vibe with.
And didn't the Huracan get a release in AOS for the Dawnbringer Crusade? Or they got a model at least?
Yes, I think they got a small model. Was it the Huracan?
I
Maybe it was
so.
them. Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe like some small guy. I actually don't remember what they got actually for the... Because sometimes with the Dawnbringers, you get like a little tiny dude, and then sometimes you get like the new Sylvaneth model. So the little tiny dudes kind of like fall in the background. You sometimes get truck. Sometimes that's what you get.
Yeah. Or you get Fury from the Fireslayers box, who looks like every other Fireslayers HQ choice.
And even like the Rabble Rouser of like the Gloomspike gets, where it's just like a little grot, and he's got some stuff going on. He's a cool model, but he's just a grot in the the background. So
when it comes to Lumineth, I think they're very, because you've got that, you're talking about these 3 different factions that have very different aesthetics. I think that to me, I guess, is what's really pulling me out of Lumineth, is that they don't have a lockdown aesthetic.
I think they want you to go directly into one. Like if you've seen a full Vanari army, you're kind of like, this is so cool, because they've got these kind of the cow guard, right? Which is like this big, like powerful hammered guys. You bring squads of them. You bring like a lot of the big cows, as we mentioned earlier, the gigantic kind of titans. They look really great. With the Huracan, you bring a couple of spirits of the wind, and you bring like a Severeth, and you bring a bunch of wind chargers, and they kind of all work really well together.
And that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see more of the animals, the graceful animals joining the fight.
Yep. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying, right? I feel like if it was a Huracan, if it was very obviously Huracan wind mages and stuff like that, it would fit so well. I feel like it's unfortunate.
And then you have a little fox mini that can go into the
dude. See,
they can go into the best mini of 2024.
Kitsune,
little Kitsune fox guy. Exactly, that would be really perfect. So I feel
is that? Oh no, they're the twins.
Yeah, they're a named character.
Yeah.
I feel like I think they're Sinari as well. But the Lumineth are also one of these things where it's, I think. Okay, another thing. Let's talk about very quickly how my experience was with the Auric War Clans when they released the Cruel Boys, okay? When Cruel Boys got announced, you remember this as well. I was like, these suck. I hated the Cruel Boys. I was like, man, are you kidding me? Like, orcs have such a fundamental design aesthetic. This is what orcs are like. You can build upon this so much. And we didn't have, like, the new Ironjaw skulls back then. We didn't have all the new, like, black orcs and stuff like that, which are now obviously the Ard Boys, stuff like that. So I was like, you've got, like, a range of Ironjaws which just have not been updated for years. Why don't you just update them and give them some new stuff? Why introduce a whole new faction? And I looked at the models online. I was like, man, I don't like these models. These are really boring and crap and grotty. And then I got some because a friend of mine wanted to go for the new Stormcast, which are brilliant. They're just brilliant on the box. That you want the Thunderstrike. They're so brilliant. But I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just get some Cruel Boys. I need a new army anyway. And I had some Ironjaws, so I was like, I'll just buff up some Ironjaws. I wanted to play the rules for the Big War because it was super fun looking, where you build up points and get stronger and stronger, and then you burn it all in one turn. It's very cool. And it felt like a little mini game I could play in a game where I was like kind of hitting a wall with Age of Sigmar. And then I started assembling and painting Cruel Boys, and it all turned around for me. Once I got close to those models, and I started painting those models and putting my own design aesthetics on them, like my own colored coats, my own like basing, I fell in love with Cruel Boys. And now I have like a whole Cruel Boys army. I have 2 Cruel Boys warbands, and I have the new bespoke Cruel Boys warband. So, and I think Cruel Boys are absolutely brilliant. I have every Underworld warband for Cruel Boys. Like, they just turn me fully around. And this is what you mentioned earlier, where you're like these these white and blue aesthetics, these kind of washed out, kind of almost boring aesthetics. I feel like that is, and I talked about this earlier, it's almost like the artists who are involved have to commit so hard to the lore-friendly example of the Lumineth design structure that when you look at them, they just don't excite you. And I totally agree with that. I totally appreciate that. But I feel like you could take anything Venari, even like the Aloran Sentinels, the most generic like guys you can get, the Venari Sentinels, having them and go, oh, give them bright red robes. Make all their trim gold with the bright red, which Connor knows is gold and bright red. They would look just so crazy cool. You could give them like charcoal colored skin, like the salamander style skin with like the red dotted eyes, or do some kind of like earthen and almost actually very evil looking elves.
I actually kind of look at it and I think maybe like the like burgundy you usually see on the Caradron Overlords with the bone armor, I think would look fantastic with those
Exactly. So there's definitely a way you could do it. Like, look at this thing.
Yeah,
like
the models are great. Don't get me wrong. The models look fantastic. It's just maybe it is one addition away from tying in. Like, Big Warg looks good on the table because there is so much key aesthetic to there's like with these updates to Ironjaws with the big grunters and the new Ardboy designs and just the war boss, the mega boss, that all just kind of works together as Ironjaws.
Yes.
And then you've got your clear design aesthetic with a multitude of models now for Cruel Boys, and the clear design aesthetic of the Savage Oryx.
Bone Splitters.
Yeah, the Bone Splitters.
Which they need some updates because they are...
Yeah, they are fantasy models. But they have these really clear aesthetics that as a big walk together, they look really great. But they're all very like uniquely identifiable. Whereas to me, these like the difference between the Hurricane and the Venari and the Sonari, they all have like this little... They're just a little bit too like crossovery. That
it's almost like it's too homogenous, but not homogenous enough.
Exactly.
It's like uncanny valley of like homogeny.
Yeah.
I think they're like, okay, I agree. I think the Sinari and the Vanari are so easy to confuse. They're very much almost the same. I think the Huracan is the most out there, but they're also the newest range of models as well, to be fair. So they did try and give them like a redesign.
Honestly, I think like just go leaning in on the Hurricane.
Look at that model, man.
Would just like tick a lot of boxes for me.
I totally agree.
Because I think they've nailed the Venari, the Stone Shapers.
Yes.
I think that aesthetic has been nailed. And I think that the only step they could do is go a little bit more harder into like the cow representation and a few more things. But then...
But you don't want to trot on beastmen too much.
Obviously. Yeah. And then if you stick with like the graceful animal mounts and the graceful animal packs of the Hurricane, add in some birds and...
Well, that's what I was going to say as well. That comes back to this whole thing I opened with when we looked at the Warcry warband, which is that, it just is... Like, they're all just ninja, which is cool. I don't disagree. They're cool. I think their design is pretty awesome. But they are ninja. And it's like, maybe there was a universe where can we go one more over Connor, by the way? Let's go on the left here. Just the angles are so bad. Anyway, it's hard to tell what's going on. Anyway, if they did have like a Kitsune Fox, a bigger character, and like, maybe a pair of birds, we'd get something out of it.
Honestly, for a good chunk of like when I was just quickly going through these promos on announcement day, on the reveal day, I thought they were Deepkin.
Interesting. Okay.
Like I just like that's just to me how that elven aesthetic is getting so mixed. Is that?
Yeah. Well, they are order elves, so I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand that is it Teclis?
Teclis, yeah.
Teclis is the big boy in this one.
Essentially the father of both.
He is, yeah.
So I understand that there is crossover there, and I was like, oh, this is just like an Achelian attack squad or whatever for Deepkin. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, it is Ideneth.
They also do kind of vibe with Achelian too. I can see that too. I think that there's another layer to add as well where I don't know necessarily how I also would have felt if it was just kind of like, oh, this but with an animal companion. I think that, and we touched on this before, where I think that we're almost like crutching on these animal companions.
Cool animal designs.
On cool animal designs. And it's like, I also think that it's nice that it's like a faction that can hold its own.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, you know what, the more we talk about this, the more I'm kind of digging these guys more and more. I don't know. I just feel like for me, mechanically, I can't get past the fact they're going to be 8 wounds T3. They're just going to get absolutely eaten up.
Yeah, it's not a good stat line unless their abilities really make up for it.
I could be wrong. They could actually just be like T3 wounds 12, and all of a sudden they're like.
I assume that their baseline would be at least 10.
I would hope so, but we don't know. We'll have to see what happens when they drop. It's just that there's little tiny elf people. Like I wouldn't be surprised if only like even 10 wounds is nothing.
Maybe they have a reduction of hits.
They probably will have something like that, like a reaction that makes like maybe they can just drop crits as like most of those kind of smaller factions can, which would be pretty good.
Or they could even do like a reaction riposte, and it's like, hey, for the next attack action, take 1 away from the enemy's attack characteristic.
Yep, that
which is huge.
That's what Trogoths do as well. That's their stench ability, so they could have something like that. That's really cool. Anything that kind of
could be
gives them
crackback damage too. Like if you've got a really light, tough guy and you say, your reaction ability is if this model is removed, like it does X amount of damage to the opposing model. Like
I've also seen some stuff where it's like ignores toughness characteristics in like attacks, but also they could have something that's like maybe when they get attacked, they have a reaction which is like their toughness is always considered the same as your strength. So even if you have like a strength 6 weapon, it's like, cool, you're winning on force. Although which could mean the difference.
I think that ability would fit more if it was like a Vanari themed warband where it is like the spirit of the mountain and the unmovable rock and that kind of thing. Oh,
sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but that would be pretty cool. Like, I can't wait to see what the actual rules are for these guys because like the more I look at them, I do like... I'd like to see how they go. Like it doesn't sell me on Lumineth as a whole, but it's like I would give the warband a crack. But I'm just thinking like in terms of what other warbands they could have put in there, I reckon what would have been a good alternate if they didn't go with Lumineth, but would still kind of fit the overarching narrative and still having an order warband would be the Caradron Overlords. Because they don't have a bespoke warband yet. They're a newer faction, but don't have a bespoke warband, and it kind of fits like here's ghosts versus like techno scientists, steampunky garbage.
The resource guys.
Whereas these guys, the elves are a little bit more like magic and spirituality, so I guess it kind of fits. Like we're gonna, fight the evil spirits and banish them kind of thing. But I kind of like the stark contrast of we are the spirits to, bring death to the wildwood while the the bloody Caradron come in, and then they're like, well, we want to dam the rivers and bring technology and order to this wild realm.
I do like the idea of like Umbraneth, like the Canaanite Shadowstalker kind of thing as well, where it's like the good guys who work in the darkness versus the dead guys that have lights.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
It's also really cool.
I think that like there's also the layer of just simply, it's like the two kind of biggest gods in the game, which is like Nagash and Teclis, kind of have these kind of little warbands versus each other too, which kind of works.
And then is that a Slan?
It is an old one.
Yes.
It is the face of an old one.
It's the head of a temple dedicated to the old ones.
It's actually a piece off of the ship that crashed into the middle of the the Wildwood. What's the Eye of Chotek?
Yeah.
So this is a piece of that ship, a face of the old one, which is quite interesting.
An old one.
Yeah. Winky. So it's like, it's just part of a ship. It's a depiction of them. It's not literally an old one's head, but it is very cool. I mean, the old ones have always been clear that they're like big frog people. So
yeah, big frog.
That's why I thought it was Deepkin. It's called Pyre and Flood.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's move on.
40k.
This is one I know Trent's going to be game for.
We'll talk about this in a second. I will add that the reason the Pyre and Flood is because I think they are actually Scenari, and I think that the Scenari is like the water. I think it's earth, water, and air. I just don't think they have like a fire version. That's all. It's like, it's earth, water, and fire. So, yeah, essentially. 21st night of December.
Earth, wind, and fire.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I got it.
No, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
We got that one.
Good.
Anyway.
Alrighty, so the next preview is for Warhammer 40k. It's the Kroot update.
Oh my god. Not just an update, but
a whole army update.
A whole army
for
the Kroot.
You know,
so exciting.
That's always been my favorite part of the Tau army, less so the big, communism Gundam aesthetic, and more I like the Kroot and the Vespid, although the Vespid got murked, RIP.
Well, the Vespid and the Kroot is the most communist part of the Tau. But yes, it's still
very,
very cool.
I like the more like down to earth, like grungy, animalistic aesthetic.
The mercenary vibe is very cool.
The high technology.
Hey guys, remember these models that we made so terrible by the end of 4th edition? You just kind of stopped playing them anyway.
Yeah. Well, what the thing about the Kroot, right, is that back then they had their own army as well. So they're like mercenaries, right? You can bring them in whoever you want.
Yeah.
But the Tau had rules around specifically bringing them.
Yeah.
Well, in the new army, not only are they just viable in the Tau and you can just play them as Tau, the book and the codex that comes in this box is going to have its own detachment, which is dedicated to just the Kroot. So they also announced, I think it's in this article as well, but they talked about this in the stream because I was watching this live. I was very excited. I was practically pissing my jorts when this was happening. And they announced that they'll be getting, this is half of the range. So they'll be getting a whole second wave of Kroot. They'll be announced very likely before the box drops. So over the next few months, over the next 2 months, month and a half, we should see the new Kroot as well come out. And as you can see, these new Kroot carnivores are just absolutely incredible.
Big gun.
A lot of the time, when we see this with like Seraphon, we see this with a lot of these new armies, they'll take a design aesthetic and they'll modernize it, and they'll change up what they can as much as possible to make it like fundamentally
looks like a Ninja Turtle.
Well, that's it, right? These guys here are just Kroot carnivores, and I'm so glad they didn't try to overhaul the Kroot and give them like a whole new design element. They were like, no, let's modernize the kits, almost like the Mandrakes. Let's just modernize the kits, make them look better, give them some cool weapon options. You'll see there's like a big grenade launcher option there. There was a guy as well with a like a little Kroot hound. You can see him there. Just so freaking cool.
These kits also look definitely just made for contrast painting.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of surface
contrast
area
painting and dry brushing, and you'll get a whole Kroot army done in no time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with like the idea that like each box is gonna have 2 squads of carnivores in there, so it's 20 mods to get through minimum of that. Like it's just. They're just awesome. They showed up the new Krootox model. So we've got, obviously, as the Kroot stand currently, you've got Kroot Hounds, Kroot Carnivores, Kroot Shaper, Krootox, right? That's what they stand as currently. So now we've just shown off the new Kroot Carnivores. Kind of swing past them, but we also had the War Shaper and the Flesh Shaper, which are the 2 versions of the Shaper now. They do different things. The War Shaper being basically your captain, with the Kroot Flesh Shaper kind of being a more lieutenant style character. These lots of cool options. I will say that the Shaper of the Kroot, this is both true in the Farstalker Kinban kill team and also true in the old kit as well. He had the option to be holding a like Tau pulse rifle or his Kroot gun, but in neither of these kits here, they've shown off that there's like a pulse rifle or option. So it's kind of like that was a cool little like overlap in design aesthetics. Where it was like some like Shazui or some like character came up and was like, you know what? Here's a Tau pulse rifle. At the best in our armory for infantry, you get to use one as opposed to your like flintlock gun. So that was really cool, but they're not showing it off here. So I hope that maybe he can still have that. Maybe they're just like, no, only the Farstalker guy gets that because it makes him unique. Here though, we have a whole brand new unit. So these are the Krootox Rampagers. Some of the most dynamic kits we've seen in all of LVO. Such cool design, like those big bounding kind of gorilla fierce and these really like forward like lumbering poses that really feel like they're going to hit you like a steam train. Long time viewers and listeners and also long time Warhammer fans might remember back in the day the Kroot had a Forge World range, Okay, in the Forge World range, they had this thing called the Narlock Riders and the Greater Narlock, which were basically like chickens that they rode around on, and these feel like a real modernization of the chicken riders, the Kroot and
bringing them
riders
into the fold.
Exactly, and by making them like adolescent Krootoks, which is what these models are, adolescent Krootoks, you kind of blend them better into the current design philosophy.
I gotta say, the model design looks like it stands on par intimidation wise with anything that rides a Blood Crusher.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. They're very Blood Crusher vibes for sure. I think that's great. There's such an impact to these models. They really feel like that they're like, if you had these models lined up against an opponent's front line, you charged them and took a photo, there's this real like kind of weight to them.
This is what 40k needs.
Yeah.
It needs more like meaty cavalry that look like they're going to destroy you in one hit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Also,
it was just Blood Crushers, and then what, the Lord Invocatus, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, basically.
Can you ride Blood Crushers on World Eaters?
Not in World Eaters. There's like a character who can do it.
Yeah, the Lord Invocatus, but that's it.
Slash the Great Lord on Khorne.
The Great Lord on Khorne, yeah.
On Khorne Juggernaut. Yeah, the Great Lord of Khorne. There's like those two options. But yes, there's no, which would be cool, like Juggernaut Cavalry. I wouldn't be surprised if later in this edition, Khorne, when they get that update, get Juggernaut Cavalry. However, it just feels like an empty part of their codex. I want to add as well that we'll come up, look at this in a second. Yeah. It's actually at the end of this video, Connor. You'll see it towards the very, very end. The Kroot Rampages. So, Tau has always had this design problem where people just don't know if you're getting into an army, right? You don't really know how you feel about their shooting. And you don't really know how you feel about the design of the town. You're kind of like, and if I'm not really into an army that shoots my opponent off the map, right? And that's not to say that they're like castling, sitting in their deployment zone all game and doing nothing else but rolling dice, but they are a shooting faction. You go, well, I can invest very heavily into this army, and then I'm just not really digging this binary style of gameplay. Like, I love that binary style of gameplay, but not many people do. And that's what they found. So I'm loving these Rampages and these Krootoks, and the Carnivores are probably not that bad in melee for what they are. It's good to have these kind of little techs into your army. And again, because they are just pieces of the Tau faction, they're not their own army. They are in their own detachment, but they're not their own army. You can just have 6 Rampages running around on a normal Tau army.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, just having a squad of Rampages able to intercept, like, whatever Rhino or Land Raiders coming towards your line of Tau is really helpful.
Exactly.
From, like, a tactics standpoint.
Absolutely. And it's like one of these things where as well, it's like you can, because they're such large bases, you can screen with them. You can put a bunch of Rampages in front of your big Tau gun line and be like, okay, if the World Eaters, like Khorne Berserkers, want to charge in, they can. They'll clean up some Rampages, and I can just go, okay, here's the gun line. Because they're on such big bases, you're not going to be able to consolidate straight into my army and just stop myself from shooting you. And having like a nice, like having a Riptide in front, a bunch of Rampages, they go charge, you overwatch with the Riptide, they tag. If they tag your Riptide, that can fall back and shoot. So you have the option to do this. And then if you take that first turn, you can just run them out behind cover, hide behind some skewering and wait till turn 2 and say, well, this is a threat you actually have to like distance yourself from.
Yeah.
Because in Tau, you can't distance yourself from 48-inch weaponry. So you go, I'm not distancing myself. I'm just hoping this works out.
You just got to move around whatever this big blob is. And then you, like, if you do that, move into cover, and then the World Eaters player does get into your Riptide, you have the counter charge, because there is definitely, we'd be insane to think that there will not be charge based rules for these guys.
Oh, definitely.
So like having a counter charge through those as well onto whatever's attacking your Riptide, which you can then like bounce out of, you've already bounced out of combat in your movement phase.
Yeah.
Like I think it's gonna bring a whole new interesting tactic to playing Tau that isn't just like you said, sitting there shooting. And there's a lot of like, with the Tau, it's a lot of like, you're a very high mobility faction. And I'm glad that with these kind of like big, the cavalry, they're probably quite mobile too. I expect anywhere from 10 to, 8 to 10 inches movement. So easily, they're not falling behind. Like Kroot Carnivores had this problem of just like kind of falling behind your big movement on your Riptides, big movement on Crisis Suits, a lot of deep strike. Even your vehicles like 10-inch move fly. So your Kroot Carnivores just fall behind the pack at their measly like 7-inch move. So you go, okay, at least these guys are going to be keeping up as well. So if I want to push everything forward and rely on some stat checking, these guys are going to back me up, which is very cool. So and at very least, you might be able to just throw them into a transport and have them hold an objective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing as well is I want to add some more speculation. So that's half of the range. We've got, Connor's brought this up here. This was the silhouette they showed off for Kroot this year. They didn't say it was Kroot, but if you look at the guy on the back,
I dare say the spines.
Dare say it's a Kroot. Yeah. However,
he could be Votan.
Could be Votan.
No, he's definitely Kroot.
Now that you say that, he could be Eldar.
Seraphon model.
But that's actually, you say Seraphon. That's the interesting part, because the mount he's on the back of is some kind of lizard-like creature. future, which is very interesting. I expect this to be a character. It might be a named character. You know, they could do the whole like fan service and make it Diak Glek from the Blackstone Fortress. But I reckon this will be a character. It'd be very interesting if it was maybe like a 5-man cavalry unit, but I don't think so. I'm hoping it's some kind of...
That'll be a HQ.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking too. It'll be some
That'll
kind
be
of
a HQ
unit.
that can be custom, that can be alternatively built as probably, I'm going to say, an elite.
Possibly, yeah. Or even the idea is like, I think that what will happen is... Okay, so let's go into a bit of mechanic conversation too before I get into any further Kroot discussion. In Tau, right, your detachment rule is Kauyon. So in the Index, you have 1 detachment, and that rule is Kauyon, which is from the 3rd battle round onwards, your army becomes very powerful, right? But the faction ability of the Tau, what makes all the Tau the same, and in the codexes so far, all of the faction abilities have remained the same from the indexes. They've remained identical. They've only buffed and nerfed certain things depending on how it happened in the index, and maybe they want to change things in the future. But for example, the Necrons is just straight up from the index. So I don't think they'll change the Tau. I think the Tau will be the same with some wording changes. And the Tau's ability is that, and it's like 40 chess, but their Tau ability is that whenever a unit wants to shoot you, you pick a unit nearby to be an observer unit. That observer unit observes this unit over here, which then becomes the spotted unit, your opponent's unit. Your unit that was shooting becomes the guided unit. And then if a guided unit shoots a spotted unit, it gets +1 to its ballistic skill, which means it's easier to hit with. However, the unit that observes can, while shoot later, can't be observed for, can't become a guided unit, and also has to, before they shoot or before they do any actions, commit to that spotting, and then they can't commit any actions any further than that. And they can't have already shot. They can shoot later, but again, now they're just hitting on their normal. And Tau are basically blind in the stories. Like they're in the lore, sorry. So they don't shoot very well. So you need these spotted things. However, you also need a keyword in order to spot for things and to be guided. Which means that the Kroot and the Vespid and the other auxiliary units don't have that keyword. So what's going to happen when you play your Tau and you go, okay, here's the codex, here's my ability, I have my detachment rule for the Kroot, right, which is their bespoke faction thing, and then I move over to, oh, I just can't spot. Now, the first fix is, the detachment rule is that all Kroot get the keywords. Now they can all do that ability, which to me is a boring fix. I don't think that fixes the problem at all.
Because I think they'll get it, though.
Possibly.
Considering a bunch of them have telescopes.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say. I think this unit might just have the keyword. Mm-hmm. I think some of them in the new codex might just have the keyword built in.
Well, one of those carnivores had a telescope as well. So.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's a war gear option that says as long as that model exists, they have that keyword. Yeah. And then the detachment rule is like, if you shoot them from outside 12, they get like stealth or something. Or maybe they just have stealth. Maybe they get lone operative outside 12. Trent's really wishing for that, but that's fine. That's a bit powerful. Yeah. Anyway, maybe they have cool rules. That's not, if it's the boring answer in that. But I see this guy, and I was going to say exactly that. It's another design aesthetic of this, like, we're looking through hourglasses, through like telescopes, thank you. And we're looking and spotting things. Mm-hmm. Makes me think that's going to be like how they work.
I think that'll be a really cool dynamic if they pull back on Tau being able to spot. And I mean, it's annoying that you have to buy more models. Obviously, it's a Warhammer thing. But having, like, building your army into those 2 sub-factions where you have a sub-faction devoted to spotting and a sub-faction devoted to shooting.
Yeah.
And then you have this really interesting dynamic where you have to maintain model, like squad counts of different kinds to really make it worthwhile. And
you have to actually scout out the enemy.
And I think that like the benefit of that too is that you will still have things like Firesight Marksmans, Tetras, and Pathfinders.
Yeah.
So the towers still have their own versions of these spotter units, of course. So what's going to happen is like you won't have to go, I need to buy Kroot units for this to work. But if you want those melee options, you want to go into the Kroot, that will not hinder you.
That won't hinder you.
You're not going to go, I don't have these rules. So the first thing we're getting is obviously this kind of like reptilian mount. I also, in the Kroot Carnivore squad, saw a sneaky little baby Kroot puppy, little Kroot hound puppy. And in the Fastalker kin band, they have a Kroot hound. They have 2 of them. So I expect the Kroot hound to be a Kroot box as well. So it's a new kind of character / unit that has those lizard mounts. The new Kroot hounds. And then...
So they have 5 units there.
So currently they have the War Shaper, the Flesh Shaper, the Carnivores, the Kurudos Rampagers, and the Krudox.
Yeah.
And then we've also know that's that 6th unit there. And then there's possibly up to 4 more units coming out for that.
One of which will be Kroot hounds.
One of which will be Kroot hounds. So we have possibly 3 more units coming out. So I'm hoping that we get... It's I'm wishful thinking. I'm really hoping we get a greater Narlock style of character.
Yes.
That's what I really want to get.
A heavy support.
A heavy support, but like some kind of like big, not necessarily a transport, but like a big weapons platform heavy support that can run around and be a big melee threat.
I think that I was just thinking like an artillery style like weapons platform would be really, really interesting for the Kroot, giving them some capabilities reminiscent of Tau, so that if you still want to play a shooting army, you can have a little bit of that flavor while playing all Kroot as well.
Exactly.
And then putting that on a big boss, like a big hog or something, and just
having the greater Narlock could just take me back to playing bloody Dawn of War Dark Crusade back in high school.
Oh yeah, the relic.
Would always be like rush it, build the Narlock, and just charge the lines, and be like his Narlock versus my Demon Prince and my Bloodthirster, just punching it out, and then one of our other mates would have the giant squig off coming through the middle of the map. It's just
give me back, boys. You know what? Give me back Carnifexes that I can't control anymore, please.
Yeah,
dude. But that's the thing as well. So I'd like to see something like a great Narlock. Maybe even, I hope that what they mean by, they say that that's the Kroot, right? But I'm hoping what they mean is the auxiliaries. And we might even get like some Vespid units in the sense we get like a new Vespid sculpt as part of like that. And then maybe even we get a kind of a legitimate scout unit for the Kroot. So like a Kroot kind of ranger unit where they've got like kind of like the ghillie suits on and they're really down low and they've got like all snipers or whatever, or maybe they're all melee, like an actually considerable melee focused infantry unit
deploy on the battlefield like
and
Loop is.
They infiltrate and then they have the options to like, maybe they infiltrate, they also have a scout move, maybe they have some options for strat reserves and redeploying in their stratagems and stuff. So look, it's a very exciting time to be a Kroot fan. I think if you're kind of a Mecha Gundam Tau fan, this isn't necessarily the release for you. And I will also add that the limited edition codex comes in a box with no Tau models in it and only Kroot models, which is definitely like its own point to come up with. I know a friend of mine and I'm buying 2 of this box because I want so many of these models. And I don't need 2 codexes. I'm splitting with a friend. He's just going to take the second codex because he doesn't want the Kroot. He wants to play Mecha Gundams, which I've been playing for years and years and years. I want a new palette cleanser. So yeah, look, the Kroot is just, as far as I'm concerned, it's such a perfect release for the Tau. I'm so glad to see them, and I'll update as they release and we do more episodes. I'll let you know how I'm going with them because I'll be playing a lot of them. I will call this now. If I have to put in like kind of like a bit of a sandwich here, they're going to be crap. I think the new Kroot army is going to be just, it's impossible to balance without making it broken. I think it's actually going to be really, really bad. I think what they want you to do is just bring a couple of other units and put some, maybe, I think they're 8 or 9 points per model, I reckon they'll be for the Kroot Carnivores. Put a couple of squads of those, new sculpts for the Hounds, put those in your Tau list you already have. That's what they're going to do.
I think they'll be bad until you get the extra wave of releases.
Well, even then, I think we'll get the waves of releases before we get the box, actually. I think we'll know.
Really?
Yeah, I think we'll get them all as like the big waves. So we'll go the box release first, and then the next like 2 weeks or so they'll release the actual other boxes. They'll actually have them on the next cycle of release. I think they'll have them all announced by the time the box drops. Because the box is still months away.
Yeah.
And then we've got
3 months.
Yeah, but that's enough time.
Anytime in the next 3 months. By the way, if anyone wants to know like what's the time frame, generally when Warhammer does a preview, anytime within the next 3 months, those announcements will release.
Yes, correct.
Because after 3 months, there's the next announcement tournament that they do.
But I don't want to sound negative here because I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I don't think everything that comes out needs to be breaking the meta or be super powerful. But I actually do not believe with a new set of models, they are going to be a competitive army. I think the Kroot are going to have a huge problem because I think no matter how you look at them, they are, and this is a big thing, and the only saving grace which we'll get to is that they're going to be incredibly cheap. So what you could do is you could do the AdMech thing where it's like if you read the AdMech codex that came out, the rules suck. Everyone was like, this army's crap. It can't see play. They've really effed up AdMech. AdMech players were seething and coping and molding. They were like, oh, but this one model's pretty good. Look at, I can bring 18 breaches with the testing torsion cannon.
They're going to bring a new guy out, I swear, like a guy on stilts or something.
Oh, yeah, right. And they're like, oh, he's got low op. Anyway, the point being is they were coping. But these lists started showing up that I went up against, which were like things like, 4 transports, 70 Vanguard, Rangers mixed with Vanguard, 30 Taraxi, 9 of each of the Solver Hounds and the horses. Like units upon units upon units upon units, like 100 plus models on the table at any given time, 2,000 points. And all of a sudden you're like,
you're like, oh my God, I don't have enough 1 damage shots to deal with this.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, actually, I see now.
Maybe I shouldn't have brought that las cannon.
Yeah, and then you go, okay, well, I see now. And, there's those layers like the internal balance is really bad because, like, maybe like half of the book just isn't in play. And that's valid. I'm not saying the book's great. I'm just saying that there was competitive viability for those who are willing to invest in tons of models. And that's what I think Kroot will end up being. It'll be an army that might be worth investing in. And, Admech are not tier 1. They might be worth investing in, but all of a sudden, I don't think 20 Kroot carnivores, 3 rampages, and a Krootox.
Yeah, I do agree that there will be the sprinkles inside your Tau army rather than a full army on
because they're nice and cheap and they can be filled in, especially in a world where you can't add and remove war gear and single models, where those points messes up. Like, you can mess with your points like really, really at a micro level by like 5 or 10 points a piece. No, when you need to put full units in, having a unit of like 10 guys for 80 points might be the difference.
And look, I'd be interested to see what the kill team stats end up being if they release a PDF update of all the kill team stuff.
That would be.
I hope we do get a new kill team compendium many times soon, because there is so much new stuff that does not have kill team rules. Even Warcry's been pretty slack on it too, but they'll do things here and there, like Cities of Sigmar, for example, where Warcry released a whole compendium for them, and that's awesome. I love that, especially with the old world coming up. They were like, let's do a bunch of stuff for marketing. But Seraphon got their new stuff. Iron Jewel's got their new stuff. Warcry. Where are those rules? So, and Kildee's been worse for it. Kildee's been way worse for it. There's been some White Dwarf stuff here and there, making up bespoke warbands, things like the Intercession Squad and the Admech Squad they made that lets you mix up your units. But even then, it's like, this is not the same.
Yeah. You don't want to drag on these games because they're doing quite a lot of heavy lifting for you in terms of moving models.
Exactly.
Especially Warcry. Like, I've put so many models just to play warbands.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And so many people I know are like getting back into Sigmar or getting into Sigmar because they play a lot of Warcry.
Yeah.
That's the big thing that kind of... Sorry, just quickly. That's the kind of thing that really hurt me for the shift to the new edition of Kill Team. Was the old edition of Kill Team was a box. Like for instance, if you want to play Plague Marines in the old edition of Kill Team, when I say old edition Kill Team, I don't actually mean like the original edition of Kill Team where you can take fast attack and stuff. No, I'm talking about like the Kill Team when it became its own standalone game back in like 2017. The way the squads were built was you can take a squad, and then all of the war gear options matched exactly what you could purchase in a box. So like the scouts, like for instance, Space Marine scouts could be armed with shotguns, or they can be armed with sniper rifles. And the only ones that could get camo cloaks were also the ones that were armed with sniper rifles. And because the boxes were scouts with shotguns or scouts with sniper rifles and camo cloaks, like that kind of element was really helpful for me from a store and community engagement perspective, where if someone wanted to get into the game, I could say, here's a box. All of this is kill team like usable. Yeah. You just buy this one box, you can build your kill team. Yeah. And then if they wanted to play the fully fledged Warhammer game, they already had their first unit. So then they can easily start building into that as well.
That's the only thing with Kill Team Compendium and Kill Team 2. I think it's fair to say that, like, if you buy a box of Plague Marines, you'll have a Kill Team in number 2. You'll still have a Kill Team warband, because that's still enough models to fill out a warband. It's just that what is generally best for a Kill Team warband, like competitively, is not legal to play that exact loadout in 40k, which I think is a balance issue as well. Well, maybe not an issue, but it's a balance like dilemma. And I think that while you can still go, for example, like Tau Empires, right? Like, you can just buy a box of Pathfinders and you'll have the Pathfinder Compendium Kill Team. You can buy they had the Kill Team now, their bespoke version, which is an upgrade sprue. But, back then it was like, you could just buy a box of like Fire Warriors, you have a Kill Team. Yep. So you could still do that. It was just that, then you'd go, I'm mix and matching carbines and pulse rifles, which you can't do. And you go, well, okay. Well, now I just don't have a unit. I'd have to buy another box and then fix that up myself, which for a lot of people is kind of like, oh, okay. And then it's like, and then in 40k, it's like, if there's an option in a box and it's better than the other one, you're cool. You'll build all your models in that option. Like if you're playing Tau is a good example. If you're playing Fire Warriors, you're never building pulse carbines. I should say strike teams. You should never be building pulse carbines. You're always building pulse rifles. In reality, you're just always bringing breacher teams. You're never bringing strike teams, but that's not the point. The point being is that if you are bringing strikes, there's a best weapon. But in Kill Team, the close format battles is like, pulse carbines are fine. They're pretty good. In fact, they're sometimes better.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like one of the annoying things for Age of Sigmar though too, is that like you can just pick any loadout of weapons you want, and then it just usually ends up being what's the best one. Yeah,
and that's the thing as well. I think with Sigmar as well, because like, and it's certainly true for 40k as well. But again, it's like, if you have like a couple of swords in your box, you're legally not able to mix and match at all. So you just tell your opponent, yeah, I have all spears. Yeah, they're mostly spears. Cool. They're just all spears, dude. This is what their one profile is. I pick up these dice and I roll this, and I never do anything else.
Whereas Age of Sigmar is like, well, these 3 have spears because they're modeled with spears, and these 2 have
40k.
hackers.
That is, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm talking about in Age of Sigmar though. It's like these 3 have spears because they're modeled with spears, and these 2 have swords because they're modeled with swords.
These guys have
in Age of
hackers.
Sigmar, no, right? Because in Age of Sigmar, it's all or nothing, right?
It's some like it's the thing is like a model can be armed with this or this.
No.
Really?
Yeah, in Age of Sigmar, it's like you bring all of the one model type. Like you bring all the same.
Oh.
You don't mix and match, right?
All
There are very
choppers.
few units that let you mix and match, and they're very unique about that. But no, it's like you bring a spear squad or a sword squad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's how it used to be like way back when it was like, if you had the different weapon profiles, you had to work your way down the different weapon profiles.
Yeah.
But I think they changed that in
That's
third
like
edition? Third edition
Yeah.
to kind of streamline that gameplay.
Yeah, and then you just go, these are all spears because this has to be all spears. So then you bring it all as spears. That's like problem solved. But I think technically you could do that in 40k as well. Like if you just had pulse rifles and pulse carbines, you could tell your opponent like, hey, this is the profile we're shooting with all game. Don't worry about what they look like. Especially in a Tau Empire where your opponent probably doesn't know what those guns look like anyway. Yeah. The amount of games I've played as strike team and gone, these are breaches. And like because I don't have breaches built, I'm like, these are all breaches. And my opponent's like, what's a breacher? I'm like, here's the data sheet. That's what it does. And like, is that the right base size? Yeah, it's the same model. It's just a different gun. Oh, okay. And they don't care if it's a long gun. It still has a shotgun profile. They're like, I know what it does now. This is what it does.
Grass.
Well, let's have a look at what the next model is. Speaking of Age of Sigmar before.
Right, yeah. We'll move on to the Age of Sigmar reveal.
Speaking of Age of Sigmar.
I love this model. I saw this model on the reel. I love it.
This is one of the best models for sure.
Oh, yeah. This will be a contender for Model of the Year.
Crethusa.
I definitely think so, yeah. I do not think it's going to win.
No.
I think we got a big year ahead of us.
It'll lose to some Primarch.
It'll lose to some Primarch. But God, what a model.
The Dawnbringer Chronicles have been mint for unique model designs.
Absolutely mint.
In character
100%.
creation for Age of Sigmar. I think the way that it's been injecting flavor into the factions through just a single model and their story and their rules has been astounding and a big change. Or even updating, like I said last time, there's the Harbinger of Decay, like bringing in an old plague guy on a horse and completely redoing the model to a new base size and a new sculpt.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And this model looks amazing. And I think it's a great new addition to Daughters of Cain.
I like it too. I think it's cool lore implications as well. Dawnbringer Chronicles about a huge story behind them and reading about it. It's pretty awesome. The lore implications of this character is that they also don't they're not under the thumb and whims of Morathi.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Daughters of Cain are actually, if you don't know at home, they're under like a spell essentially. Like Morathi has basically convinced them all under a spell that she is their god and their only god, and she's the re-embodiment of Cain. And they don't need to worship Cain anymore. They can worship her. Whereas this character doesn't actually worship her at all and isn't under that thumb, isn't under that spell.
The crow god.
Yeah, she worships a crow god.
She went hunting for the crow god's avatar, I think, and then inadvertently became it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Morai Heg.
Yeah.
I do like that because after the betrayal at Hammerhall, was it Hammerhall?
Hammerhall, yeah.
Where Morathi's just like, hey, I'm actually gonna just take over the whole joint now.
Actually, I'm a god now.
Yeah, actually, Sigmar, who's that? Never heard of him. So yeah, it's good to see.
Oh, you guys thought you were worshipping Cain? This is all that's left of him.
I do like in the lore implications though that there is like a civil war going on within the Daughters of Cain like faction. Yeah, it's like, oh cool, now you've got these like crowborn, and that's a cool aesthetic as well, like crow, raven-esque, big wings, feathers, all that sort of stuff. But just lore implications. And to go back to what you said earlier, Dawnbringer Crusades I think has been injecting a lot of character into AOS, which for some people has been one of the sort of in terms of a lore setting, like one of the biggest gripes that the world doesn't feel as lived in, and because there's not as many stakes and established characters as there was in the old world. So to see them bringing in a bunch of characters and building them up and giving them story, and even coming back to the ones, like if we think of Ionis Cryptborn, who was the Stormcast Relictor from the first box set.
The very first edition,
he's getting a big new model, which means he's got carry on in story. It's creating that.
I think there's also like not just to mention you're talking about the characters being like bringing the lore into a focus. There's also been a real, I think, like God, I just had the word in my head and I forgot it. It's been very like hot and cold on characters from a gameplay perspective as well. Because some characters are just broken. or well, I wouldn't say broken. I say broken as in like I'm a nerd who really hates playing against them. Yeah. It's just they're powerful. Their abilities and their profiles are much better than others. And I'm talking it look like Kratos and Marathi herself as well being really strong characters.
Boy.
Oh, not Kratos. It's not Kratos.
Kragnos.
Well, look,
Kragnos and
they definitely are. They're like all encompassing in the sense of like they have so much going on that the whole army is basically like if you bring them to a game and the army is about them.
Yeah, and that also changes the gameplay of playing against those characters versus just playing against those armies. I think it's interesting that it's kind of working going the route of, well, let's just inject more characters.
Yeah.
And see where things land. Because now, like, these characters are becoming build-arounds in their own sense, but they don't have, I guess, the like, pointed profile that kind of breaks the game a little bit around them.
Is like emasculates the right word? It kind of like knocks down everything else. Like things just aren't comparable to them.
Yeah,
and it makes the game just about them.
I could take my Rune Father, but no, Gotrek's here now, so he's just gonna play the game
Gotrek.
for me. Yeah.
If you haven't read Gotrek's profile, Gotrek is insane. Gotrek is the greatest example of all of these. Yeah. But I think that let's take a step back here. I totally agree. I think that like it's a win-win, right? So like, while these characters are still build-arounds, look at like Belthanos, right? Who's like the new Kurnoth character. So he has an army of renown, which we touched on in an earlier episode, where basically, you can bring exclusively Kurnoth hunters, Gossamer archers, and the
Revenants.
They're called not Spite Revenants, not Trio Spite Revenants. They call something else. Reavers, I don't know. They're like the flying little bugs. You bring like the flying bugs, the Gossamer archers, and the Kurnoth hunters, and call that a day. And you bring only those and him, and then they get rules around like they're singing like a chorus. And as they're singing and as they're hunting down, you pick like a quarry and they're hunting down the prey, and then you build up this chorus as like the trees are humming and singing along with them about to catch this prey. And then as they catch it, the whole song goes silent, and then you build back up the chorus again. It's super incredible. It's really cool. It's like this aesthetically. The mechanics feel very much like you can imagine running from them in the woods, and like it's almost like the sound is unbearable as they approach you. It's
building
like,
that tension.
It's building tension, and the game builds tension mechanically. It's very cool. Same thing with the Iron Jaws and their supplement, where it's like it's not an army of renown. Well, actually, I think this one is actually like the army renown they got, where it's like you play only the Maw Grunters and the Gore Grunters, and then you get that momentum tracker, right?
Yeah,
which you don't normally get in Iron Jaws, and these feel really cool. So they're still build-arounds, but you have like mechanical value to the build-around that makes the army feel very different. You've changed fundamentally how the army works in order to make this new army within the confines of this old one.
And that mechanical build-around isn't just effective on the character. It's effective on the whole army.
And it's not a build around because you've gone, I've got this character that's so expensive in points, by the way, that it fills out so much of my army. So I've committed so much to this character, I have to commit more to him. Because, for example, Kragnos is 720 points in a 2,000 point game. That's a crazy amount of points. Yeah. That's more than a third of your army easily. And then you have to go, well, I could just put him in and play a bunch of destruction models because he's for any destruction army, of course. But what you're really going to do is bring wizards that could then buff him and give him like extra save characteristic. You're going to build, you're going to have like chaff that can screen for him to guarantee his charges. You're going to have units that do that kind of thing. You're going to have a lot of like little teleporting guys that can kind of do the sideline objectives and distract your opponent so that Kragnos can get in. Like everything is about how do I make Kragnos work because he's so expensive. Nagash is 985 points. It's like, how do I get Nagash? How do I get Nagash in and make him work?
You end up having that little arms race amongst your own pot of players as well, where someone like drops Kragnos and you're like, I'm playing Iron Jaws, I guess I gotta go get Kragnos now. Which is kind of what happened during our AOS league a couple of years back that I was in, is that like, I just got absolutely destroyed by Kragnos and I was like, well, if you can't beat him, join him, gets a Kragnos model and then starts winning.
That's valid. I think Kragnos is a great example. Kragnos reminds me a lot of like King K. Rool from Super Smash Brothers, where it's like I think Kragnos is also the kind of thing that will completely demolish newer big players. Yeah, like players who aren't heavily enfranchised, Kragnos will just walk through because they don't fully understand like the math and the impact he has.
Yeah, and then even you got like Jenna was playing Marathi in that game, and every game that she had impact on was the games where she wasn't versing another Marathi.
Yeah,
like these kind of elements, like and. With these new characters coming in, it's like you said, it's mechanically changing the whole army, not just the build around that one character, the whole army build.
But it's giving you options and
diversity. Giving you options. And I think, like, honestly, I was concerned when they started bringing out all these characters being like, well, I guess you just got to muddy the mixture and have a whole bunch of more build arounds. But now it's developing, like, I want to say like whole new metas for these factions, whole new sub metas for the factions that are.
And I feel like definitely the most beneficial thing I can think of is just simply the fact that they are so much cheaper on points that it just does give you more room to play around. This gives you more room. Like, look at Trug being 360 points. Legitimately, half Kragnos' points. Exactly half of Kragnos' points. That's 2 Trugs for the price of Kragnos. Like, and if you read Trug's profile, you kind of go, hang on.
I'm just picturing like 2 Trugs, like it's like a picture of like a Woolworths shelf with like 2 Trugs, and the ticket's like 2 Trugs for the price of a Kragnos.
And that's the thing. If you look at Trug's profile and you go like, let's have a read of this. It's like 2 Trugs is worth so much more than 1 Kragnos. They are together exceptionally better than what... obviously you can't have 2, but they're exceptionally better than a Kragnos to have 2 Trugs. So you go, okay, well now I've got this much more points efficient model that's even much better, and I can add more things to my army, and I can play around with it a bit more. And if I wanted to go full Trogolds, which, I've done plenty of times, but even with or without Kragnos, if I wanted to go full Trogolds, I now have the option to do so with Trug, and then he's buffing that whole army. So now I can actually... And this is the thing about Belthanos does the same thing. He does the same thing. Ionis Cryptborn with the Stormdrake Guard do the same thing. Where it's like they're designed to give out buffs to other characters and make other, well, not just characters, but other units really, really powerful.
Yeah, as opposed to being the spearhead.
Exactly.
I like it.
And Kragnos is the worst example of all of these, and Morathi falls into this too, where it is about them. Whereas I think when you look at characters like Teclis and Nagash, even though they do have this problem of A, very high points, and B, very powerful, they are still a little bit more about what they can do for everything around them. Like Nagash is handing out wars, Teclis is handing out spells, they're still doing things to help your army. It's just they're so points heavy, and they're such big models that the gameplay does become about them.
I think also the big problem is the things that they're handing out are so effective. They're also so effective when they're handed out to themselves.
Of course, yeah. I mean, they can't always be handed out to themselves in relevant ways, but when they are, it is very powerful.
It's insane. But yeah, I like it. Risky play, I think is a good play. Well done, guys.
Definitely.
These guys.
Well, this is interesting. No, what do you mean Shut up. This is really cool. So this is... I don't know what this is, though. So this is like a part of the story, the major story. This is a Caesar Sigmar faction. Yeah. This is basically like the equivalent of like 40k Inquisitors. It's like an inquisitorial faction that's there to like hunt down...
traders.
They're rogue traders. They're to hunt down like problems for Sigmar. They're doing like detective work and stuff. It's all in the new story. I haven't read the new story with the Crone yet, but it's all part of the new story. Yeah. I wonder if this is like just a unit, or they'll get Warcry rules or something like that. It's not an Underworlds faction.
I would not be. It's a unit of characters. I would not be surprised if it gets rules like Black Talons.
I hope so. And you know what? Can I? Okay, I know we're on this now. Let's go back to Warcry conversation just for a quick second. God, Black Talons. Okay, so Black Talons fail in one way. You can't inject yourself into the faction. Like, for example, Connor plays as Iron Jaws. He has Ed Hunter, big story around Ed Hunter. He made the character up. It's part of his orcs. He has a whole story behind him. You can't inject that kind of personality into a faction of just characters, named characters. But God, it doesn't make them any less cool and interesting to play. And from a narrative standpoint, you can have watched the show Black Talons or Warhammer Plus. You could have. And you could have also read the books, right? You could be really into this, and I know a person that has, and that's great for them. They're like, wow, this is really cool faction. I'm going to inject what I know about the Black Talons into this and try and role play these characters that are different. And I wanted more of that. I was actually, when I saw Black Talon, I was like, give us more of this. First of all, give us factions in Warcry that have mix and matching like Grand Alliance models in them. Where's the big bespoke warband, first of all? Where's the Bone Splitter character and the Iron Jaw character and the Kruleboy character all in the same warband?
Just the Bone Splitter shaman like buffing everyone.
Yeah, I wanted to see a Nighthaunt faction where it's like maybe there was like an actual a Soul Black Gravelord's Necromancer. And he's got like a chain of skulls hanging from his like thing. And then there's some other Nighthaunt models which are skulls with flowing robes but chains coming off them. Like, and he's kind of bound them. Like spirit cultures. And he's bound them to his staff. Like, have Grand Alliance stuff. Like, because of the whole like, there's an Ideneth character in the Black Talons. That's not the same as saying there's a bunch of different Grand Alliance stuff in there. But that feels so unique about it. And for me, I was like, I want to see more of these. So I'm really hoping these guys get Warcry rules because these speak out the same kind of way. You've got a bunch of Cities of Sigmar models, and you've got a Stormcast Eternal in there as well with his Griffhound. Yeah. And the Stormcast guy looks so good.
Oh, it's great. Can the Black Talons as well be taken as in any order faction as like a mercenaries thing?
In Age of Sigmar?
I think you can ally, but...
So they can't normally. Yeah. They're not like a regiment of renown, unfortunately. Yeah. They're a unit in like the Stormcast Eternals. However, yes, you can ally them into any faction.
Well,
however,
I mean, like they're a unit of Stormcast Eternals, and they have a Deepkin.
They have a Deepkin. So
So there is, I guess, there's a really great space then for making those bespoke alliance warbands, but then putting them into a major faction within Age of Sigmar as well. So if you do have that Soulblight Necromancer, that's actually really great for Soulblight Gravelords and playing in the Death Rattle sub-faction there.
100%.
And having some, and there's a whole story then about Nagash being pissed that more guys got stolen from him.
Yep. Same thing about going into like the other direction. Like, look at the way in second edition how Nighthaunt worked, right? Back when it was Legions of Nagash, before Soulblight Gravelords even showed up, Legions of Nagash, all their heroes and such said death on them.
Yep.
So often you'd play Nighthaunt and you would bring Archon the Black, and I've still got mine on my shelf because you bring like Archon the Black, Morkata Sacrament, you bring a couple of Necromancers, and then you just ally them into your Nighthaunt, and you go, cool, I can ally them in. All their ability is just work on Nighthaunt. They just do, which is freaking so cool. To me, I was like, that is the coolest thing, that I could bring these cool necromancers, like real, just a couple of living guys and then a whole army of the dead.
When it was like more focused on, his grand alliances, so you could kind of mix and match your forces. I think obviously they wanted to kind of separate that out in order to make the rules a little bit more straightforward. But the only faction I think really kept that was the Auric Warclans for the most part, because they're like 2/3 of destruction.
Exactly. So, but again, only of the most part, right? Because like you're not accessing any of the Gloomspite Gitz models. So they lose Trogoth, they lose their goblins, they lose all of that. They lose the spies,
Squig bounders,
all of the Squig stuff. They lose all of it. They also lose the Ogres because they're not having access to the Ogres. Like there aren't a huge like amount of destruction factions, with the last one only being the Sons of Behemoth, which basically you can actually put them in everything.
Fire them into the sun.
Well, not first of all, fire them into the sun, but second of all, they can go on everything because they're actually like mercenary rules. They can go into any faction you want. You can have like a Death Giant if you want to. People have done it. But because there just isn't much destruction, that's more accurate. But again, they fall into the same problem where it's like, all of the orcs can go together. But even then, that's actually not necessarily true, because if you bring Iron Jaws, you can't actually put Kruleboyz in your army. It's not like they don't get your rules. They actually tell you cannot bring the Kruleboyz models. So if you go Bone Splitters, that's only those models. Iron Jaws is only those models, and Kruleboyz is only those models. And then if you play the Big War, where you lose all of their unique mechanics but keep their one basic mechanic, then you get to put them all together. Right? Which is cool. Like I think, and like I mentioned, I love the Big War. It's a great faction. I think it's awesome. Doesn't change the fact that it's still so concise, and that's fine. That's all great. But going back to the Warcry discussion, going back to these guys here, these Sigmar guys, this is closer to what I want to see from more Warcry factions. And also, like it just lets you. I like anything that lets you build upon things more narratively. I like the story of Age of Sigmar. I don't care if people don't like the god battle design of it. This is definitely going into that more grounded kind of character aesthetic.
I think that they're trying to sort of layer it in two levels of like, they're going for like, here's god battle stuff, but we also have like low to the ground, everyday heroes kind of.
It's like Gaunt's Ghosts, right? It feels like that. It's like the Gaunt's Ghosts of Age of Sigmar,
it's
which
like,
I think is great.
Space Marines, and they're fighting the big battle of chaos. And
here's
then
the Indominus Crusade.
Here's the Indominus Crusade. Here's like, your day-to-day grunts putting down rebellions. Like here's Necromunda beneath that, and like, even...
And like Ascension Day. Right? Like look at the Genius of the Occult's book, Ascension Day. Here's Ascension Day. That's like a totally open and closed book, open to closed like story, but it just happens within the confines of the world of 40k. Same kind of thing. The Dawnbreaking Chronicles I feel like the Dawnbreaking Chronicles are throwing a lot of darts at a lot of boards, and I think some of them are bullseyeing and some of them are missing, because I will say that it is still a bit of a larger conflict with a lot of factions getting involved with each other all at once. However, it's cool that this specifically is like, it's like Dawnbreaking Chronicles, I think it's like honestly like 18 now. Dawnbreaking Chronicles 18, like I think it's the 6th book, but it's like 18 chapters. And then these guys are actually like 6.1.
Yeah,
this is the lore book.
They have their own book as
well.
Their
own book. Yeah. And then this is like 6.1. So it's happening in the background. Also, dude, bloody give is it Shigeru Miyamoto? I forget his name. That's Pokemon Trent. Give the freaking Square Enix guy a call, because the freaking Kingdom Hearts key on the back of the Stormcast Eternal guy.
Oh my god.
Just so cool. You can see a close up, Connor. Go scroll down.
No, scroll down.
There it is. On his back there. Isn't that just with the two skeletons holding it up? It's so grimdark. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's
Traverse
one thing I'm really
exists in Age of Sigmar.
Traverse Town exists in Age of Sigmar.
It's called the 8 points.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I do like that there is this element of grim floating around inside of Cities of Sigmar at the moment. Like obviously the shift away from the Empire, Lore of Metal, like fanciness that was Old World.
It was the home of the Old World misfit toys, and now it's starting to feel like, these are actually cities that are lived in, that have people, and
it's reaching the medieval Dark Ages kind of side of things.
Well, there was there was a narrative campaign for Warcry that was literally you play as a Stormcast who's like a detective, and you have to go around and investigate what later turned out to be Marathi's invasion of Hammerhall. In this dark elf syndicate known as the Blackstone Coil or something.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing that you got to do. So that kind of was the start of injecting a little bit more like, hey, you know, the Sigmarines are out there fighting god battles, but they're also on the home front trying to protect these cities that they've built across all the realms and stuff.
And it's kind of like a weird like noir detective kind of vibe.
Yes.
And it's like a named character Stormcast who's going after these things. It's just like a cool little story. Warcry does that so well. There's so many cool little narrative campaigns in Warcry. We're playing a lot of them soon. We're doing some organization of some stuff as well that we've been going over some of those. We actually looked at that exact campaign ourselves. So but yeah, that's very exciting stuff. It just I love it to bits. This is the coolest stuff. I wish I had more information about these guys to give you, because I just don't have much information, but the models are great, the book is great, Dawnbreaker Chronicles doing a lot, and
has a cat.
And the big thing for me as well I want to add lastly is that we touched on this earlier where it's like the god battle problem and what people have issues with Sigmar coming off fantasy. I do think that the best thing we've got out of Dawnbreaker Chronicles is simply that the characters, there's lots of them, and they aren't so over-encompassing and over-powerful. Even outside of their rules, just in the lore, that it means you can find someone you care about a lot. Like, if you look at Trug and you're like, oh, it's King of the Trolls. I like trolls. Then you can read, like, the Clammy Hands. You can read different books about the Gloomspite Gits and learn more about the Trogoths and more about the Gloomspite Gits and go, this is really cool for me. And you can find that space in Age of Sigmar to go, this is actually a really built upon universe and a really heavy, like, dense lore of worlds and characters. And it's cool. So I'm really liking that. And the books are great. Read them. They're also, the Dawnbreaker Chronicles are free online. Like, not the full books, but the stories, all like 18 chapters or whatever, are currently free online.
Warhammer community is such a great resource. I think I probably spend more time on that website than I do on the actual Warhammer website.
Yeah, well, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
I spend more time in the Windows 11 start menu than I do on the Warhammer website.
Alrighty, so moving on to another one of Trent's favorite games, Underworlds.
Warhammer Underworlds. God, I love this game.
New warband. Heartbroken Wizards. This is the one. So I think what will these be? They would probably be Soulblight Gravelords. Yeah, there we go.
Soulblight Gravelords. So
they're giving some zombies some love. The ghouls.
Yeah. Well, Underworld's like only in Harrowdeep, I think it was, actually got a kind of Frankenstein's monster zombie faction, and now they're like,
Animal Friend.
This is the number 2.
Yeah.
Zombies 2 Electric Boogaloo. But this is much more voodoo zombies, magic zombies with their as you see their pet friend. Yeah, this is very like grim zombies. It's very different to the Frankenstein's mechanical kind of Tesla-inspired zombies. It's alive
kind of stuff they had,
And however, it is very cool. I could definitely see somebody getting both these warbands and making a cool Warcry zombie warband. And these guys have a lot of like Flesh Eater Courts vibes to me too.
This one here reminds me of the girl from The Ring.
Yeah,
it's
like
very much like Samara.
Yeah, the ripped up stuff. Yeah,
that's such a good death rattle aesthetic.
Yeah,
like I do like that. Also, the Soulblight Gravelords have those 2 sub factions where you can go Vampire Counts or Death Rattle kind of thing.
Yeah,
where you have the prim and proper Blood Knights and the Vampire Lords, all that kind of stuff, and then you just have the Necromancer and a bunch of rotten dudes and skeletons.
Yeah, like zombie skeletons, Graveguard, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So this kind of like Death Rattle sub faction of Soulblight is just I enjoy this side of death.
Yeah.
And from a fantasy perspective. Not a real life perspective. But I think that this like grim aesthetic they've really started leaning into it since the release of Soulblight, and it's fantastic.
It's also very rock and stone. Like you've got shovel, pickaxe, hammer, and nail.
It's Steve from Minecraft.
Although I do like this model. Like this is interesting.
The lycanthrope.
Yeah.
I think that's also it kind of makes these zombies feel like they're just like guys. They're just like blacksmiths and workers that have just been raised out of the dead and just bid to fight you.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of those zombies, when you give them things like swords and shields and you give them weapons and such, it feels like it's a bit more diluted almost. Whereas this feels true. It feels true to the form of like these guys have just risen out of their graves. They grab whatever they can nearby, or maybe what they were even buried with. Maybe that guy loved his job.
Or it's like my first necromancy, and it's like the first time like out the like, oh god, I didn't get the soldier ones. I went to the workers' graveyard.
Basically, or even then it could also just be like somebody was literally just working over their bench and he's been killed, and this guy's come up and gone, oh, pick you up as he's walking through a town or something.
I would love to see a little bit more of this like lycanthrope aesthetic if they release some like new units into Soulblights, or even if they made them like their own sub faction.
This is giving me strong Warcraft vibes.
Very Warcraft.
Yeah. No,
like Lordaeron kind of. Yeah,
it's time, Dylan.
We've
reclaimed Gilneas.
It's very cool. I like these guys. Not much to say about Warhammer Underworlds. They come with their own Rivals deck. Play the Rivals deck. Play Rivals with your friends. They're very powerful. They got cool abilities. Underworld is an undertaking. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's the whole deck building mechanic's kind of weird for me.
Well, it's gone. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, right? Okay. So they have like set decks now.
Well, Rivals decks are just like their set decks.
Okay.
So you play Rivals with your friends. You don't worry about that. Yeah, you just play Rivals, and that's kind of how they want you to play now.
Maybe I'll jump back in soon.
Yeah, I love that to bits. I think it's great. Obviously, they realized with their rotation and then like the way they had to ban cards and such that just wasn't working, and people weren't committed to it, and they were like, okay, look. Let's just make these things cut and dry. I do feel that it makes a tier list of the factions very like set in stone. Like you're not able to fix these things. You're kind of a point where you're like, okay, well, this is what their deck is. This is what they have. If that's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And we could be like, oh, these factions are banned at certain events. They've not gotten to the point where things are so bad at all like that. But at the same, and it is a very skill expressive
They're definitely
game.
at the whim of the designer playtesting.
Exactly, it's definitely at the designer playtesting, and also you can tell when a faction is really good versus when a faction is really bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Speaking of bad factions.
Speaking of Stop it.
I'm
All right.
kidding. Horus Heresy.
We saw this coming.
Yeah, who didn't?
We saw this coming. So Legion Imperialis drops. We get the Solo Auxiliary as their own army. Right after... So first thing that happened was Horus Heresy came out with a new edition, and they gave Solo Auxiliary a bunch of rules, right? Like early in their edition. They were like, hey, if you have Imperial Guard models, you can play the Solo Auxiliary. Here are their rules. They're pretty good. And everyone was like, these guys are pretty good. We're going to play these. A lot of people played them. People went on to Forge World, bought a bunch of Solo Auxiliary stuff, started playing them that way because they had their infantry there. Then Legion Imperialis drops, and there is no Imperial Guard. There's just the Solo Auxiliary. That's all they have. And then everyone's like, wow, I can file up in my Solo Auxiliary. And they're like, just you wait. And now... all the Solo Auxiliary are available now in plastic. They brought out the new Command Squad, the new Infantry Squads, new Malkador tanks, new Lehman Russ variants. So everything drops
So you take all your Vanguard heads from your Adeptus Mechanicus boxes and put that on
some Krieg.
on like breacher teams. Yeah. I feel that I think they're great. They look great. I love these models. It's Solo Auxiliary. So guess what? You're buying a lot of plastic.
Yeah.
It's a lot of models.
You know what? This is just a fun alt faction for Astra Militarum anyway.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like when you scroll down, the chassis are all the same on the vehicles too.
Yeah.
So the chassis can be used in 40k. Do whatever you want with these. They're brilliant. I love them to bits. There's not much to say about these Solo Auxiliary. They're basically like the best versions of the Imperial Guard, by the way, if you didn't know about the story. The Solo Auxiliary are the top of the line stuff. This is very cool, the Armored Sentinel. Again, they got Legion Imperialis models. Now they've got the nice big version. Lots of weapon options, lots of missiles, lots of...
Assault cannon.
Oh, yeah, very cool. The I think it shows off there like the rotary las cannon, but they've got plenty of other options as well, as you can see here. Between the launcher batteries and also those gigantic twin missiles you see at the very bottom there, just incredible. So, yeah, they're cool. I think that they're not going to be very cheap, obviously. They're Horus Heresy models, and you'll be buying a lot of them. But all of the Lehman Russ variants, all the different tank variants, all obviously get played.
I'd just play them in 40k.
Yeah. But
I like Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of commitment, but I really don't like how samey Imperial Guard are.
Yeah.
In terms of their model designs.
The
just having something a little bit different.
The Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard, as we tend to use the term, the Astra Militarum do still kind of have this almost Ship of Theseus kind of vibe, where it's like, you know, they still are trying to hit these old, like, World War, like, II kind of vibes, and they're still trying to kind of...
They're all colonial marines from
they're all trying to... They're all, like, Starship Troopers. They're trying to like, cross these lines a lot, but the the Solo Auxiliary are, like... They're the closest to Marines you can have in foot soldiers, in just normal dudes without going transhuman, and they feel very Warhammer. So yeah, I do like the idea of going,
it's old fantasy in a modern, like in a sci-fi setting.
Yeah, because these heavy
because they have night greaves on.
Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah, they got power armor on. So they're wearing power armor, and they've got the whole Volkite calibers on their weapons, and they're great models. So yeah, 100%.
I'm always thinking about the Arbites as well, like these like alternative skins for them, and like Kill Team or something.
They kind of got that Judge Dredd vibe.
Yeah,
they got a RoboCop kind of vibe too. Yeah, I love them to bits.
I am the law.
Yeah,
I am law.
They're just great. I love them.
You betrayed the law.
There's so much cool stuff. There's another wave of them coming too. We haven't got all their models announced yet. But as you can see there's that cool chassis as well. And all the different Lehman Russ options. I will say they announced the Lehman Russ battle tank, and then as a separate kit, the Lehman Russ assault tank, which are the exact same model with a different turret. They even said that. They were totally transparent about it. They were like, yeah, we also brought out a new Lehman Russ assault tank, and it is a different gun. with all the same loadouts, but it's a different gun. And you kind of go, okay.
So it's just one sprue.
It's like one box and they swap one sprue.
It's a different gun, but it's the same gun.
It's the same gun. Different tank, same gun, different tank. Different tank. Same gun, same tank, different gun.
Same tank, different gun, tank
gun. He's like, sir, he's like smacking on the back, like steam coming out.
Mate, shareholders already made a profit, okay?
Don't worry. We've already sold out of pre-orders.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
it's like
Jesus,
the red dot's like lining up to his forehead. He's like,
I said too much.
But we promise you, it's a different kit.
It's a gun.
It's a gun. We promise you, it's a gun.
Okay.
It's a tank.
The strike tank and the assault tank are the same vehicle for rules purposes, and the only difference is the weapon options you get in the box.
Same
Isn't that amazing?
Different
Same
tank.
Different tank. Anyway, look, whatever, guys. I guess.
It is like...
You could have put it all in the same
marketing.
box.
That is marketing right there. That is the marketing speak of same but different.
Same different. And look, that's the thing about like this is exactly the conversation we're having about the Kill Team box and the Warcry box. It's like just make people spend as much money as possible, guys. We get it. You're not like top 10 grossing company in the whole freaking world or anything. You're not like record profits every year. It's fine. Look,
it's not like you gave a bonus to your employees.
Yeah.
It's not like you just signed a huge deal with Amazon.
Look, admittedly, giving a bonus to your employees is much better than firing 1,100 of them.
Guys, Games Workshop is like Riot. It's a small indie games company. They can't get everything right.
Well, speaking of that, Riot just like dropped a bunch of their employees.
They just fired 550 employees.
Small indie games company.
Legends of Runeterra just had to put out a big like post being like, the future of the game is
dead.
Bleak. They're like, most of our team members are gone. And we're going to do our best to keep the game thriving, but don't expect very much for the next indefinitely.
But hey, guys, we've still got an MMO and a fighting game coming out.
Yeah. Hey, look, the fighting game looks very good. We're going off the rails. Solo Auxilia are cool. I like them. Won't play them. And I don't know many who want to invest this heavily into them. However, they're pretty cool. And they have a lot of... Look, and the big thing about them is like, when you're playing... Okay, Horus Heresy is a game that I became very disillusioned with. I played a bunch of it. I really enjoyed it. I'd play it today. I became very disillusioned because, unfortunately... when everyone's playing Space Marines, which just is the way, and yes, you can play Adeptus Mechanicus, you can go into a Heavy Knights, you can play Titans, and yes, you can play Imperial Guard. Yes, this is all true, but people want to play Space Marines. Everyone's playing Space Marines. There aren't that many options in the game in general, and even fewer of those options are very good into Space Marines. Full plasma calibers, las cannon squads of Devastators, like full heavy weapons las cannon squads, Contemptor Dreadnoughts. This became the norm. I'd go into every game expecting lines and lines of las cannons and Contemptor Dreadnoughts. And I was like, the game became very samey, very frustrating, and very swingy because it was like, okay, well, I go to my turn, and if I manage to completely blow up all of your las cannon squads, it's over. I ended up playing some of the most disgraceful factions you could play. Like I play Emperor's Children, and I went heavy into the third company Cacophony because I could just keep hitting them with my sound guns and pinning all of their Devastator squads every single time. And my opponents were like, oh, but I can't use my las cannons like at all. And I'm like, that's correct. I'm like, oh, but that's kind of lame. I'm like, I'll just lose. Like you'll destroy everything.
Welcome to the meta, my man.
Like I have to play Fire Drake so I can feel something.
You're right. I could have brought my own las cannons, and we could have just rolled a dice, and whoever went first killed you, like stopped you. But yeah, I'm gonna just stop these things from working because it's the best I can do. And now we have these models. And what this does is it adds a bunch of these new players and this new kind of dynamic to the game, a lot of big tanks and a lot of one-wound infantry that have not great saves. All of a sudden, bolters feel very good. If you're expecting to versus Solo Auxilia, which you should be in the future because they're going to become widely available as far as Horus Heresy models go, that's going to change the meta. It's going to change what you want to put in every list. I'm no longer going to play my Space Marines against people who tech into anti-Space Marine. And I don't want to tech into anti-Space Marine because it doesn't feel as fun. So I'm like, okay, I want to bring
but then you won't need to tech into anti-Space Marine.
Correct. And like I want to bring Palatine Blades with spears because it's just so cool running around with the Emperor's Children unique spears. It's such a cool concept. But they are no longer going to get absolutely eviscerated by Space Marine technology because people are going to want to bring cool and flexible lists. And I might even get a chance to verse the Solo Auxilia where lots of attacks at damage 1 with my blades feels pretty good again.
Yeah. New army, same gun.
New army, same tank, different guns.
Different gun, same tank.
Tank, different box, same money.
Soom army.
Tsunami
Dar.
Tsunami.
Flash is what the Solo Auxilia are.
All the money to me, please.
Same allocation to stores that will sell out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
New tank.
No. Twice as many allocation of Lehman Russes because we'll get allocation for each box. Twice as many allocation for Lehman Russes.
But what if people only want one of the tanks?
But it's a new
That's
tank.
not our problem.
Yeah, you're right.
The other person will want the other tank. For every person who wants a battle tank, there's somebody who wants an assault tank. Same tank, different tank. Same customer, different tank.
gun.
Same gun, different gun.
Different
same tank,
gun, same tank.
Different customer.
Different box.
Same
New
gun.
bulldozer, old army tank.
Correct.
Right.
New killdozer, same crazy guy.
I think that's pretty much it for LVO.
Well, that was the LVO reveals. You said you want to talk something about the LVO list that won?
Oh, yes.
So I'm bringing this one up right now. I haven't had a chance to actually.
Is there anything I need to pull up? Is there an article?
I'll find something for you. Give me a second.
Okay, sweet.
So, all right, you tell me about this LVO list.
So, the LVO list that did super well at this was, I think it was a 5-1. I don't know if it was undefeated, but it was Matt Laura's Hypercrypt Legion. So Hypercrypt Legion is a Necron faction in the new book, the new codex, which is their detachment rule is called hyperphasing. So every end of your opponent's turn, depending on the size of the game, in a normal game of 40k, 2,000 points, is up to 3 units. You can actually pick those units up, okay? And you can put them into strategic reserves. So at the end of each of your opponent's turns, by the way, you could put them into strategic reserves. Now, you can't do this all game, obviously, because towards the end of the game, if they're in reserves, they'll just die. But for the early parts of the game, you can put them wherever you want. At the end of your opponent's turn, pick them straight up. Now, they can't be within engagement range immediately, but we'll get to why that won't matter, okay? The list that this person played had some really funny stuff in it to begin with, right? Where it was just a character spam list. So, it played, give me a second. It played 2 Chronomancers, right? Each with a special enhancement on them. A Satan Shard of the Nightbringer. Mm-hmm. It had a Shatan Shard of the Void Dragon. It played the character Illuminor Seras, Imhotep the Stormlord, and a Plasmancer. And the Plasmancer is important because we're going to get to that. It played 2 squads of 10 Immortals with Gauss, and a squad of 10 Immortals with Tesla. It also played 5 Deathmarks, which are the Necron Sniper Squad.
Yep.
It played 3 Locust Destroyers, which are like the flying original Locust Destroyers. Ooh. Just because they have a pretty good profile in their shooting. They zip around there fast. And it played 2 times 3 Canoptek Scarab Swarms. So 2 squads of 3 Scarab Swarms. Just to like throw them around the board, whatever. More importantly though, it played the Necron Monolith.
Just one?
Just one. The Hypercrypt Legion has stratagems. They care very specifically about the Monolith. The Monolith is a hard unit to play in the Necrons because you may not know this, those at home, but the Monolith is a gigantic moving pyramid with a gigantic crystal at the top. It had a newer model that released later. You might remember it from the old days. The newer model that released for it no longer had like a kind of angular crystal. It was like a round crystal. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a bigger model. So it's even bigger nowadays, even harder to move around the board.
And then there's a Tesseract Vault, which is that same Monolith model expanded out with a Satan Shard in the middle of it.
Correct. Unfortunately, the Tesseract Vault is the most unplayable model ever designed, but the Monolith, very playable. Actually, well, technically it's funny because the Monolith is its own model, and then there's the Obelisk and the Tesseract Vault, which is their own model. But it's all like kind of the same thing. Here's the important point. So there's a stratagem that they have access to. So stratagems are abilities they can use throughout the game. Mm-hmm. Considering too, they can put units in strategic reserves.
Up to 3 at the end of a turn.
Up to 3 at the end of the turn. If a unit has Deep Strike and you put it into strategic reserves, it can go into Deep Strike. They have a stratagem called Cosmic Precision in the Hypercrypt Legion. This is in your movement phase. If you've got a unit arriving using the Deep Strike or Hyperphasing abilities this phase, your unit can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 3 inches horizontally from enemy models. But it cannot declare a charge. Oh no, dude.
Sorry, Immortals with Gauss?
No, that's not the Immortals, right? We're getting to that. This is the Necron Monolith.
Yeah.
Can be deep striked 3 inches away from your opponent. So if your opponent's trying to screen a Necron Monolith 9 inches away, it's very easy. Make that 3 inches, it becomes very difficult for your opponent. Okay? The Dimensional Corridor stratagem is a 2 CP stratagem that says, in your charge phase, a Necron unit from army that was set up on the battlefield this turn using the Eternity Gate of a Monolith model that started its turn on the battlefield. Normally, this says that a unit can be deep strike within 3 of that model. It could teleport to the Eternity Gate. We'll get to how that works. This says they can charge. If they get within, like, however close they want to be to you, that unit for 2CP can charge, okay? You've got so if you scroll up, Connor, the Monolith, right, has a 2-up save. Its toughness 13. It has 22 wounds. It is a lot of wounds at toughness 13. Consider that las cannons that are anti-vehicle weaponry are strength 12.
7 leadership, though.
7 leadership. Oh, you don't worry about that. Okay?
What is it, running away?
It wasn't running away. 8-inch move is fine. It teleports. Who cares? 22 wounds to get through 13 toughness, okay? You'll notice something here. I don't think it comes with it. Yeah, it doesn't come with an invulnerable save, but it does have quantum deflection, which says until the end of the phase, it gets a 4-up invulnerable save. So if you manage to get through that toughness, it's going to quantum deflection and not worry about it at all for a CP. Okay? For 2 CP, you've got the hyperphasic recall. After an enemy unit has shot or fought in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, you pick a Necron's infantry unit that had any of its models destroyed as a result in a friendly monolith model, and you redeploy your model within 6 inches of the monolith and away from their unit. So they shoot your Necron unit, it goes away and gets set up next to the monolith. Get out of here. You're gone. Get it out of... You're not charging them. They try to hit you. So Terminators come down, they hit you with their Storm Bolters. Cool, you're not charging them. They're out of here. They're out of here. Go to the monolith. Very, very, very flexible. And here's one. Entropic dampening is so funny. This just doesn't really matter, but it can show up.
Stratagem, yeah.
Oh yeah, it keeps going.
Yeah.
Your opponent's shooting phase. If an enemy has selected as targets, one Titanic model from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks and within 18 inches of the attacking unit, all of their weapons gain the hazardous ability. That means that each of them, after they've shot, roll a d6 and on a 1, their model pops.
So you teleport it within 3 inches, wait for them to attack you, and then give them all hazardous.
Correct. Now, let's just... This is just all the... We're not even really at a point where... We're not even at a point where this is really powerful yet. We're still just talking about all the cool things this can do. Yeah. Connor, why don't you scroll up for us?
Yeah.
Now, let's look at this thing's weapons, okay? This model comes with Gauss Flux Arcs, Particle Whip, and Death Rays. Now, the Gauss Flux Arcs are the generic weapons it comes with, but you can swap them for Death Rays. Death Rays have 1 shot each gun. They are hitting on 3s, strength of 12, AP 4, damage D6 plus 1. Okay, they are 4 las cannons on this model. Mm-hmm. Each one has sustained hits D3. So it hits you on a 6, it adds D3 additional hits. And they're las cannon shots. Okay? This thing has the Portal of Exile as a melee weapon. If they manage to get in on it, it's 6 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 8, AP 2, damage 3. It's killing Terminators by just pulling them into the portal. The Particle Whip, which is by the way, the Particle Whip is the famous lightning that shoots out of the orb. That's the Particle Whip, okay?
Yeah.
3d6 attacks with Blast. Blast means it gets +1 extra attack for every 5 models in their unit. Hitting on 3s, strength of 8, AP 1, damage of 2.
So that pops Marines.
With devastating wounds. So on 6s to wound, they have no save against it. No save whatsoever.
Ridiculous.
This model is ridiculous. Now, Connor, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Your head's just in the way for me. The Eternity Gate. Here's what I was mentioning earlier, right? The Eternity Gate is in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. So at the end of your movement phase, select a Necron's infantry unit from your army that is either in reserves or on the battlefield. If you select the one from the battlefield, you place it into reserves first. That unit is then set up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within 6 inches of this model, and not within engagement range of enemy units. That unit cannot declare charge this turn. That means that the monolith can deploy 3 inches away from you. Mm-hmm. Then it can teleport a unit in the gap, the 2-inch gap between 1 inch engagement and the 3 inches. And if you need to, that unit can charge. However, you don't need to, because you're going to put you're going to put Tesla Immortals there, or depending on the type of unit, Gauss Immortals, but probably Tesla, which we'll get to why. And that unit is now also in the way of them charging the monolith to begin with. Now it's in the way of them, right? And any other units that are getting involved, you're going to teleport more units to the monolith. And then every end of your opponent's turn, you can pick back up the monolith and put it down somewhere else. Meanwhile, you have the Satan Shard of the Nightbringer and the Void Dragon. These models are toughness 11 wounds each. They are both a 4-up invul. They halve all damage they receive. They both have a 5-up feel no pain. These models are incredible. They have great output. They have great melee. Even the Nightbringer just does mortals to everything around at end of every fight phase. These things are just running around making a ruckus, making a mess of everything. Meanwhile, this gigantic, literally a monolith, by the way, this gigantic brick is just making a mess of your day. This is the most incredible thing.
That's so funny.
This is the most incredible thing. And this is and let's put the icing on the very top of the cake, okay? All of these units benefit from reanimation protocols, which is that every start of your turn, they heal D3 wounds back. So I just want to talk about this list. This is so awesome.
So it takes a hit, it runs away, or whatever's you're screening with takes a hit from your opponent.
Yep.
Then teleports out, and now they can't attack you.
Well, what's important, right? Here's what's cool, right? If they shoot that unit in front, you can just teleport them behind the monolith. The monolith is a huge brick
That is now screening.
them.
Christ.
And then they reanimate at the start of your turn and heal models back. Because reanimate not only heals the unit, it picks up dead models. And immortals are 3 up save, toughness 5, 1 wound models. Now, for reference, okay, a unit of Tesla Necrons, okay, at 24-inch range shoots 20 shots, okay, with strength 5, AP nothing, damage 1, yeah? But they're double exploding 6s, okay? With a Plasmancer in that unit, which I touched on earlier, those are exploding 5s. Double exploding 5s. So you're getting sustained hits 2. That's 2 extra hits per 5 up you get, okay? Necron Immortals also say that they reroll 1s to wound and reroll all wounds against anything on an objective. So you put anything on objective, cool, the Necron monolith is in your walls. It also is your walls, because it's a monolith. It's its own walls and yours as well.
And your walls speak to you as they shoot lightning at you.
Yeah, death rays and particle whips at you, by the way.
It's like a...
It's
like a frisbee that's covered in razor blades, but you find out the frisbee is made of cake. Like, what is going on? Like, this is ridiculous. This one LVO.
I do like that.
My God.
The Tesla weapons mean that just like you can't defend with anything. You put Marines on there to hold it, well then the monolith's death rays and particle whip just removes them.
Yes.
You put a swarm of guard or a swarm of orc boys or whatever, and then the Teslas, just 1 damage shots just eats it all up. Like, that's insane.
And orc boys are 5 toughness, but these are 4 up. These wound on 4s with full rerolls against them. You know, you shoot 20 times. On average of shooting 20 times, right? You're going to hit more than 20 times with double exploding 5s, and then you're going to wound half of that. Let's say you hit 30 times. You're going to wound 15 times on 4s, and then an extra 7.5 times. So you're making them take 23 saves every time they shoot them. And orcs have like t-shirts for 5 up saves.
Yeah.
TP in the fridge, feet on the towel rail spec. Like,
it's
that's
crazy.
Just, you can't even charge it because you're going to get screened, or they're just going to pick it up and move somewhere else.
By the way, all of this, okay, is on the side.
Yeah.
And 2 Satan shards are still playing the game. And we also didn't talk about the fact that in the backline they've got 3 Locust Destroyers just blowing apart what you have. They've got the 20 Gauss Immortals also running rampant. The Chronomancers involved with them, by the way, are giving them -1 to be hit at all times. And also say when they shoot, they can move. So they're very, very flexible.
If those
moving
Locust
around.
Destroyers are as potent as they are in Battle Sector, God help anybody
who's
coming up against that thing.
And then you just have the death marks popping anything that comes in from Strat Reserve.
I just love that. I love those models.
To add as well, one of the Chronomancers had the enhancement Dimensional Overseer, allowing, while it's on the battlefield or in strategic reserves, you add 1 to the number of units in your army you can select for the hyperphasing rule. Now you can put 4 units in there every time. One of the other ones had the Osteoclave Fulcrum. By the way, I love Necrons. The Osteoclave Fulcrum, which says models in its unit have the Deep Strike ability. So that's a squad of Gauss Immortals also just deep striking on you.
Just have deep strike, yeah.
And keep in mind, you don't have to deep strike the monolith within 3. You can pick a different unit to do that. It's very flexible.
Just putting Gauss within 3 inches of an enemy unit is just pretty dangerous.
It's pretty dangerous. Because consider the
rapid fire. And then you can just pick them up.
Well, consider the rapid fire. They're all rapid fire range.
They're what, rapid fire 3?
No, I think the rapid fire 1. I think they shoot once and they're rapid fire 1.
It's like... It's like rogues in PvP. It's just like, oh, cool. I'm a zap you, stab you, hit you with the combo, and then I'm gonna stealth, and you can't do anything about that. And then I'm gonna do it again in like 20 minutes with my stealth. All my combos are off cooldown.
Isn't that incredible?
It's the bob and weave. Like it's.
No, they're not rapid fire anymore. Sorry, they're just 2 shots with lethal hits. So, but they're still 2 shots, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1 with the full reroll wounds.
That is such a creative way to approach Necrons as well.
Exactly.
It's so interesting. Like they looked at these rules and be like, oh.
And here's the thing as well.
So involved as well. It's not just like this isn't something that just you look at and go, this is going to work. It's you need to look at how does this interact with this and this interact with this, and put together this logic puzzle of insanity.
This
like you're
Goldberg
Charlie
machine.
from Always Sunny, like looking at the map going, the monolith will work.
The monolith will work.
And then 5-1, one of the biggest Warhammer 40,000 tournaments in the world.
Yeah. Now, there was also a little model called Illuminal Zeras, who's a named character that was also just in this list, by the way.
Great card in Magic.
And this guy is toughness 8. He's got 9 wounds. He's got a 4-up invul with a 2-up save. Shoots 3 times at 9/3/3. Strength 9, AB 3, damage 3. 3 shots from that. His ability, by the way, is that if he is within 3 inches of one or more other friendly Necrons units, okay, he has lone operative, so he cannot be shot outside of 12. So he's totally free. That's if he's next to something like, I don't know, the Monolith. So he also has the mechanical augmentation, which is probably why he's not next to the Monolith. But he says, well, a friendly Necron's battle line unit, which is all of those immortals we mentioned earlier, is within 3 inches of him. Anytime you shoot them, you lose an AP. You lose 1 AP from your gun. You go down by 1. Every time they shoot you, they get an AP to their gun.
Yeah.
Their Gauss is at 2 AP. Their Tesla has AP now.
Tesla at AP -1 is insane.
It's incredible.
Like I understand like AP1 is kind of the du jour for 40k at the moment, but the amount of hits that I've seen Teslas get out of their extra hits, adding AP1 to that is insane.
It's insane. Considering, like, as well, this is really important to mention, is that a lot of the times AP1 is like whatever because cover is so easy to access in the game. Cool, I can't see your whole unit with my model. You have cover, right? It's so easy to access in the game. However, I'm deep striking outside of 3. I will find the angle where you do not have cover every time.
I wonder how many models this guy still had on the board at the end of his games. Like, honestly, if you had just, the way you've explained this to me, if you had told me his whole list was just the Monolith, 3 squads of Immortals, and the Plasmamancer and the Chronomancer, I would have believed you that was the entire list.
And yet it keeps going.
And yet it keeps going.
And he also, at all of this time, is scoring secondaries with Scarab Swarms as well.
Liked the intro to Dark Crusade so much, he decided to run it as a list.
Yeah. The Monolith.
The Monolith!
We destroy that and it's over. Charge!
That's so good. That's insane.
I just want to bring that one up too, that a really funny list. Nobody expected the Monolith.
It's the Spanish Inquisition of the LVO.
Of LVO. Incredible model. So, that's it. LVO was a really cool event. My friend Lachlan, a Brisbaneite, he won Best Harlequins at LVO. Him and his friend went to, him and Tom from my Warhammer group, just shout out to Lockie. They both went to LVO. They both visited Vegas, of course, because that's the Las Vegas Open. For those at home, we've just said LVO the whole time. That's the Las Vegas Open, the big event. He played in it. One of my mates, Tom, he went 4-2, which is pretty good. Playing, I think, G-Stealer Cults, maybe Tyranids, can't remember. And then, Lachlan got best in show for Harlequins. So,
well done, Lockie.
Well done, Lockie.
Really well done. Low Rollers, one of our teams here, was always talking about it. Everyone's like, wow, good shit. So you got a little trophy. It was really cool.
That's
anyway, cool event, cool reveals. Warcry is a cool game.
Yeah. Warcry is the best.
That's pretty much it. That's the sum up of the Las Vegas Open. Let us know in the comments what was your favorite reveal from Las Vegas Open, and why are you not playing Necrons now?
If you can't order a Monolith online because it's temporarily sold out all over the globe, then you know why now.
Now you know why.
If you've been saving up for one and you're like, it's just after Christmas, I can finally get it. What's going on? Who's bought these? Yeah, it's everyone.
So rush into Vault Games and order them now before they inevitably do run out of stuff.
They already have.
Oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. They already have.
Well, get a pre-order in for the next batch.
Yeah, definitely. If you have the premonition, if you're watching this now, Tracer from Overwatch back in time and make sure you order one.
Yeah. That's insane. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you, Connor, for being behind the scenes there.
Thank you everyone at home for watching.
Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel here on From the Vault YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast here on Spotify if you're listening on Spotify.
I know I do.
We'll be back for more, I guess, board game, business, tabletop discussion stuff soon.
Yeah,
so
we have to touch on the old world soon. We're touching on the new Star Wars Unlimited soon. So stay involved.
Yeah.
I know I gave it some flack last year, but I'm in, man.
Yeah,
Star Wars Unlimited.
I can't wait to see the episode because I won't say any more, but I may not be in it, so I'll be very excited.
You have bought in hard.
Yeah, we're filming some new stuff for Hardcast as well.
Yes. Very cool.
Looking forward to that. So that'll be up on the Hardcast YouTube channel. I'll put a link down in the description as well. I think that's it. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there. Wash your goddamn hands.
Wash them.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Goodbye.